This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
No, cut that. Keep that. Someday it's going to be worth something.
Russ Wakelin.
You put me in an ATST with frickin' Wookiees attacking me and whatnot?
Now you're talking.
And Matt and Rich in the third chair.
It's just a great game.
Really, Matt? Really?
With contributions from Total Fangirl
Vampires do not sparkle.
and our loyal listeners.
Are you crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at the speed of Gareth Bale of the Real Madrid with a ball at his feet and a mascot monkey hot on his heels.
What?
Today's edition is brought to you by all of our Patreon patrons, the folks that help keep the light on and give the show that lived-in feeling, including this time Thunder Chicken, David McCarson, Al, Neil McLaughlin, and John Armstrong. Not to be confused with Neil Armstrong and John McLaughlin. I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host. Today our panelists are Russ Whack Wakelin and special guests Matt Hart and Rich Loxam, the brains, the brawn, the beauty behind Steamforged Games, source of the great new soccer football miniature skirmish sensation, Guild Ball. Let's begin. Issue number 1. A guild is an association of artisans or merchants who control the practice of their craft in a particular town, organized in a manner something between a professional association, trade union, a cartel, or a secret society. Question: which of the following was not a recognized guild in medieval London? Broderers, Loriners, Girdlers, Upholders, or Woolmen? Woolman Wakelin.
I'm going to go with Upholders.
Upholder Hart.
I wanted to go Upholders, but I'm going to go Woolman to be different.
Lorna Loxam.
Girders.
It's a trick question. They were all guilds. Broderers embroidered. Loriners made stirrups and tack for horse riding. Girdlers made belts. Upholders upholstered. And woolmen worked with wool, I guess. Issue number 2. Jumping the shark is a phrase created by John Hine, now of Howard Stern Show fame, initially used to describe the moment in the evolution of a television show when it began a decline in quality, signaled by a particular scene, episode, or aspect in which the writers used some type of outrageous gimmick in a desperate attempt to keep their viewers' interest. Question: how many seasons did the television show Happy Days survive after Arthur Fonzarelli's ill-fated water-skiing jump over a confined shark? Richie C. Russ.
1.
Lori Beth Locks.
2.
Ralph Mouth Matt.
None. It died at that moment.
7.
What?
Oh,
7? How could that possibly be? Making Jump the Shark a strange phrase to have survived. Issue number 3. Football, or soccer, is a sport played between two teams of 11 players with a round ball. The game is played on a rectangular field with a goal at each end. The object of the game is to score by getting the ball into the opposing goal. The goalies are the only players allowed to touch the ball with their hands during the game. Question: soccer, or football, is the world's most popular sport. Roughly how many people worldwide play this game in over 200 countries? Cristiano Ronaldo Russ.
Oh, geez. I'm going to go with, 3 million.
Lionel Messi Matt.
I'm going to go with 20 million.
Ooh, that's better.
Michael Laudrup Locks.
60 million.
You are all so far wrong, it makes wrong redundant. It is played by 250 million players in over 200 countries around the world.
Wow.
According to somebody on the internet. Issue number 4. A mascot is any person, animal, or object used to represent or bring luck to a group with a common public identity, such as a school, sports team, society, military unit, brand name, etc. Mascots can often bring a sense of zany fun to events and great crazy chaos that normal humans could never match. Question: the word mascot is traced back to the late 1880s in France, where it was used by gamblers to refer to what type of person? Gunnersaurus Rex Russ.
An easy mark.
Rory the Lion Locks.
A Lucky Charm.
Murray the Magpie Matt.
Someone who liked chewing whilst in bed.
Partial credit, because you stunned me. Unfortunately, partial credit is still wrong. A witch, of course, a witch.
What?
Also slang for a spell, because that makes sense too. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
This episode of the D6 generation is brought to you by
Battle Foam.
protecting your army so you don't have to.
And the War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that is for a decade or more.
Hello!
Hello!
Hello.
Hey, and welcome to episode 171, Craig.
Yes, that's an awful lot of odd numbers.
171 of the D6 generation. I'm Russ Wakelin.
I'm Craig Gallant.
I'm Matt Hart.
And I'm Rich Loxam.
Hey, Craig, you know who these guys are?
Matt and Rich and or Lox.
Craig, the Guild Ball duo is in the hizzy.
Right. That's right.
This is really exciting. Matt and Rich, the men behind the insane awesomeness that is Guild Ball right now.
I mean, we were barraged with
Yes.
you need to get a hold of these guys. Emails, texts.
We were.
I don't know how they got our text. I don't know. Skype message. No,
Yes.
they didn't do that either. Twitter. They got that.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
So thank you both for taking all the time to come out on the show here and join us on our little podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, as I was saying to you just a second ago, 171. I mean, I remember listening to you guys at episode 3 and 4. So, yeah, this is awesome to come and chat to you.
Well,
We've all grown old together. Some of us more old than others.
yes.
Yeah, I still remember doing my design a heraldry thing for the three of you guys.
I remember
sending it over.
That was awesome.
I'm looking
Yeah.
at the winner right now.
Oh, yes, it was awesome.
I know. I must admit, I felt slightly aggrieved because it's like, hold on a second, I can't make an actual shield and send it to you because I'm in the UK.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
no,
fair.
I know.
It's
I
fair.
know. Well, that's the problem with these contests, isn't it?
Yeah, there's
One
always...
person is happy and everyone else is angry.
Yes. That's the problem. Speaking of that, we are going to have an excellent contest in the very next episode.
Yes, we have heard your pleas.
It's coming soon. It's going to be a short window. So in the next episode, there's going to be a contest following the Gen Con about sponsored by the Dice Tower Network. It's a very exciting chance to win big money, big prizes. Limited response time. You're going to have to get response in by the end of August. So be sure to listen to episode 172. And then if you're interested in winning games, make sure you immediately respond to that. All right. Coming near soon.
Because we're doing this in conjunction with the Dice Tower.
There's a whole network thing going
So
on.
there's a whole network involved.
Yes.
And there's big money on the line.
There is. So more about that in the near future. So, now also, we recorded the Lost Chapters and, Craig, do you remember what the topic was that we talked about in Dunkin' Donuts here with Matt
well,
and Rich?
I think the closest we can come to it on the main show here is Age of Sigmar WTF.
Yes. Right. So, we talked about Age of Sigmar. Now I just want to throw this out there first of all. I know that when we created the Lost Chapters, we did say that we would never do, one of the main segments we do on the show in a Lost Chapter. So clearly...
And so we did not.
So we did not. So clearly covering Age of Sigmar in great detail after we played the game and really understand what it's about, that would be in the main show. We have not played the game yet. So just prattling on about
Not even once.
No, prattling on about internet rumors at random and just throwing out our opinion like we know what the hell we're talking about, even though we played the game, that's something we do in the Lost Chapter. So if you want to hear us do that...
We're going to pretend that we are anonymous internet trolls.
Yeah, exactly
at Dunkin'
right.
Donuts.
That's right. So you want to hear, four gamers, miniature war gamers, talk about what they think about Warhammer Fantasy Battles, having not played even one game.
And it's not a hate fest. There's
there's some love.
views on both sides or multiple sides.
Not all, it's no hate, just
there's a little bit of that.
just disappointment, but not even
Not even universal disappointment. Anyway, you're going to have to listen if you care.
You are. So Craig, if they want to listen, what should people do?
Well, their best bet, and the one that makes us the happiest would be, becoming a patron over at Patreon. So you go over to patreon.com, look for the D6 generation, watch our creepy little video. And then you can click on it is, as we like to do all things, you set the value of this ridiculous, not too horrible, hopefully, form of entertainment that we're just splashing out there. Most people think it's worth $0, which I may happen to agree with. If you think like $2 an episode makes sense to you and you'd like to donate that, it's a donation is what it is. And you're donating what you think and what you could afford. Like a lot of people are on there for 50 cents and we appreciate everyone at every level. You do get little access points at different levels. At $2 is the level we're talking about. $2 an episode gets you all when Russ gets everything technologically straightened out.
Oh, it's all straightened out now. So
it's
they're all
straightened out
available
again?
there.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So, and one thing we should say too is I get a lot of questions. We used to offer the Lost Chapters onesie twosie.
Right.
And folks are like, I'm really excited about the fact that you guys covered, Game of Thrones on the Lost Chapters, what you thought about that, or your big debate about Star Wars episodes 1 through 3, why were they made, or things like that, or Warhammer,
WTF.
or Age of Sigmar, WTF. Those kind of topics may be interesting to you, and you're like, but I can't buy them onesie twosie. Here's the thing. It's kind of like Netflix, right? So let's say Netflix comes out with a brand new series like Daredevil you really want to watch. Well, you subscribe to Netflix for a month. You consume as much Daredevil as you want, and you continue your subscription if you like it, or you stop. The Lost Chapter
Now,
worked
if
out
you're
with
having a single negative thought in your head right now, I want you to go back and reflect that for $2,
yes,
which is pretty much what the Lost Chapters onesie twosie used to cost once they went up because of the subscription plan that we were forced to use. You have not only the one that you're interested in, but access to all of them.
100 others. So
there's really no downside.
It's now actually
There's
pretty good value.
There's no downside
it's like
at all.
If 3.5 hours or 4 hours of podcasts are not enough for you, you can, for a mere $2, you get another 100 hours, right?
That's right.
And Craig, I just want to point this out. There are a lot of podcasts out there going for like doing 3 or 4 hour episodes now.
Yep.
I just want to say that we were doing 4 hour episodes before it was cool. In fact, I even want to say we were doing 4 hour episodes when it was downright stupid.
That's right.
That's how it's been rolling. So, in any case.
And it didn't matter. We were like a rock against the tide.
Right. People are like, I can't
People
fit
were
this on
complaining. People to this day are like, what? 4 hours? I don't get it.
People are like,
I can't listen to 4 hours of anything.
What's an MP3 player? I got to fit this on my CD-ROM and it only holds an hour and a half. What do I do?
Oh, the good old days.
Right. So anyway, now one other thing I got here, Craig, in my hand right now, I'm holding, can you hear this? You hear that?
I hear that.
I have a solid ceramic. All right.
Poker
chip with the D6G logo on one side, and
check out the Twitter feed.
Dice
baby.
are our vice on the other. And if you would like one of these awesome poker chips, they make great challenge coins. They make great objectives in a miniature war game. They make a great first player token. They make a great thing you can fling at your opponent after you lose horribly at that. Whatever
That's
you do.
what I'm planning on using mine for.
But if you'd like one of these, the easiest way to get one is to come to Gen Con, come to our Play by Mob event Thursday night at 9
That's all
PM.
you got to do is come to Gen Con. Come to Indianapolis from whatever corner of the world you're in right now.
We'll take care of you.
Not a problem.
Hook you up with that.
Especially, Gen Con's what, like 2 or 3 days away?
Right. Really
when
close.
You're listening to this, or maybe even has already passed.
Jump on it. So if you're going though,
time machine, get yourself DeLorean, get it up to 88 point whatever.
Right.
78? I can't remember.
88 miles per hour. Yes.
88. 21.1 gigawatts.
Gigawatts, right.
Thank you.
Gigawatts!
So
anyway,
yes, if you're interested in that, definitely swing by and you'll get that as well. So
yeah, and we did that instead of the patches this year because we had so many people who would return guests at the Gen Con thing that were turning down the patches because they'd already had 2 or 3 of them.
Right, time for something new. Right,
time for something. Never let it be said that we do not move with the times, other than moving away from 4-hour podcasts.
So what's the time now for, Craig?
Oh, right about now it's time for
Achievements in Gaming.
Shaking it up, changing with the times.
I like it. I like it.
Getting modern.
Exactly.
This is what happens when we record late at night.
So Achievements in Gaming is brought to us by all our friends over at Patreon. Really appreciate you guys helping us out. And you do make it possible for us to do crazy things like the Play by Mob. We had to get some new equipment this year for that, some wireless mics. Craig, we're going to have 4 wireless mics this year, so we can wander out into the audience. It's going to be awesome.
And what about the car that we're going to put under everybody's seat? You get a car! You get a car!
We're not quite there yet. But anyway, so yes,
well,
and
the patrons
chips.
have to step up.
So thank you all the friends at Patreon for helping us out. So
very much so.
So Craig, what have you been playing lately?
What have I been playing lately?
Yes.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. It's been a while. I played another game of Guild Ball.
Nice.
And enjoyed it immensely. Yep. Thought you guys would be happy to hear that. I played against our friend Greg, who is eagerly, as he hears this, like squirming in his seat because he's been begging for this episode since he found out we were doing it. Greg is like a really, really good gamer. He loves digging deep into into really solid rule sets, and he loves synergy and working out things, and he's really, really good, and he has been known to crush people mercilessly and make them cry. And I had a game against him. He played my Masons, which again is probably not a great idea. And I played my Morticians. And this time around, which is great considering I was playing Greg, who's, like I said, an amazing, amazing player. I only lost by 2 points this time. I scored 3 goals.
Nice.
It was amazing. We did find that things really bogged down at the beginning of the game, but once somebody scores and that ball's flying all over the place and the models are everywhere and people are coming on from the icy sponge rules, like everything starts to scatter, and then the game goes super, super fast. It was a lot of fun. I had a great time with that, so that was awesome. And then I finally got a game of Free Blades in with Dave. We picked that up at Adepticon. And I was disappointed.
Oh, so what was Free Blades? What was
Free Blades is a skirmish, fantasy skirmish game.
So it was like Mordheim. You were remembering back to Mordheim and thinking, "Oh, the glory days."
No, not really. No. The demo was great. The demo was fast and loose and fun. The player cheat sheet seemed like all you'd need in the demo. The demo went quickly. It was a lot of fun. The guy that was doing the demo was really engaging. He was using terms that were familiar. It was like, that's a sword, that's a two-handed sword, that's an elf, that's a dwarf, that kind of thing. I chose the rule book as my prize when I won a prize at the Wounded Warrior raffle at Adepticon, and then picked up 2 war bands for Free Blades. And reading the rule book, I was it's very crunchy and strangely laid out. I know it has huge fan base. I know I don't want to gore anybody's, sacred ox. It wasn't for me. I spent 4 hours, actually. This is in other, but I'll say it now. I spent 4 hours writing a new, player guide for the game.
Really?
And it was 3 pages of 8-point font long.
Wow.
In double column. There's a neat game in there. The reason that I've spent all this time and effort on it is because somewhere in there is a really neat game. It's more complicated than I want, but there's a neat game in there. But then on top of that, the fluff in the world it's so fully developed that it's hard to get into, and it's so aggressively, we're not Tolkien. They don't have elves, they have trillions, they don't have dwarves, they have something else. They don't have swords, they have these things. They don't have spears, they have those things. Like, everything has its own little funky name.
All right.
And it seems to me almost like at that level of geekdom where they're like denying you entry because you don't know all the cool, it's like you've got to learn. So it's like I make fun, I poke fun occasionally, and I'll say like one sentence from the rule book's fluff is almost all history, very, very dense, very like back in the dawn of time, blah, blah, blah. And it's like the Fondu and the Jabba went to the Vuladu and they went in the DDD and they da-da-da'd because when the Falala rises to the Idadu, it's like any word you could choose, like a normal word is a different word. And so it's very, very, I found the fluff very hard to access. So it was a disappointment. After that game, I went and I did that. I spent 4 hours writing that document, and I'm more than happy to give that game another go. Cause I think, like I said, there's a cool skirmish game in there somewhere, but I have yet to find it.
All right.
Then we went to Maine, which usually is a lot of gaming, but this year, there's a lot of stuff going on. So, we played a little bit of game. We played Betrayal at House on the Hill, Karen's favorite original hobby board game, and luckily got a good haunt. So that's always a fun game when you get a good haunt. Martian Dice and Luchador made, another big splash with my nieces and nephews. And then last night, almost played my first game of Frostgrave.
Wait, are we giving achievements out now for almost playing games? Is that a thing?
Yeah, because this one, I had it set up. Okay, the game was set up on a table. The warbands were chosen.
All right.
They were deployed. We literally had just rolled initiative. Jeremy Sherpa was about to go. And I, for only the second time in my entire marriage and courtship, got called away from a game. So, but it's another minute. This one is far more like Mordheim. It's a fantasy miniature skirmish game set in a ruined city. Everything's frozen though instead of a comet. And so this was a huge, I'll talk a little bit more about this but yeah, so I almost played this game, which I think is going to be a really cool game, but, didn't get a chance to play. Okay. And that's me.
That's good. Rich, how about you? What have you been playing lately?
Quite a few card games. I've been kind of trying to, in the design ahead of me, trying to work out why, certain card games can be so easy to pick up. And you can, in 5 minutes, you play them. Similar kind of mentality we have for Guild Ball, that you can pick it up and play.
Right.
So I picked up Love Letter. I've played it before, but I picked up a few different versions. So I picked up like the core set plus the Hobbit version and the Munchkin version, just to see the differences. And it's kind of the Hobbit version, I think, out of all of them is my favourite one, because they've just added a few extra bits like the Ark of Stone and the Ring in there. And it adds just a little extra difficulty to the game, to the choices, and it just makes it such a nice little game to kind of pick up and teach people and keep people coming back. It's very, very clever. Really enjoyed that one. Mm-hmm. I've played Coup as well. I've been playing quite a bit of Coup. I love the kind of strategy behind it and the way you can bluff and double bluff and what you represent, and again that simplistic 2 cards and you're in. It's great. The one I was not that I kind of been, a lot of people rave about it was King of Tokyo, and it's been recommended several times to me, so I finally picked a copy up, but I wasn't blown away by it. It seemed, I've heard that the expansions make it better, but the actual game was very simplistic out of the box, but to the point that it wasn't that fun.
I had a similar experience with
that. Me too, actually. And my kids also did not like King of Tokyo, although I have heard, I've not played it, but Craig, you think you have, isn't King of New York a lot better? A lot more difficult?
I thought King of New York was fantastic.
Yeah.
This is what a lot of people said, that, that expands on it and improves it. So that's my next port of call. Because I can see, I think, as similar as Craig saying, I can see a good game in there, but it's just not there in that base set. So that's a little bit of disappointment. But again, I like the way the dice work, the mechanic, and the easy pickup. When you pick a rule book up, and I know we'll say Age of Sigmar, but you see 4 pages or 2 pages. There's a lot of merit in that,
right.
And it's a good thing.
There can be, yes.
Yeah, it can be. It can be.
Good.
But yeah, that's pretty where I've been in the gaming recently.
How about you, Matt?
Me, I've been playing a few games actually. I'm quite lucky because at work I've got a fledgling gaming society that we're pulling together.
Nice.
And I get to play with all of those guys. So we're doing a lot of simple stuff. So Dominion, Epic Spell Wars of the Battle Wizards. What else are we doing? Stuff like Crossmasters. Have you guys seen that?
Oh yes,
I would love it.
Oh yes, we're big Crossmaster fans. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's super fun, and everyone seems to enjoy that. And then in other more tabletop-y stuff, I've been playing a lot of Guild Ball.
Good. I was wondering if that
was going to come up.
I did notice that Rich didn't mention he hadn't played a single game of Guild Ball, and I'm now wondering how much playtesting is actually
Rich
going.
It's now moved to. In Rich's head, it's now moved to work, Matt. This is what happened.
It is.
No
That's my playtesting work.
Right.
Yeah.
That is true. So I got 2 games in this week. One against Sherwin, who is our lead writer. Mm-hmm. So when I go down to the club, there's Sherwin and I, and we've got a super enthusiastic pundit down there as well called Paul. So we're a bit of a powerhouse in the south of the UK in terms of Guild Ball, and there was lots of games going on, but Sherwin and I went head to head for the first time with a guild that I haven't actually played a huge amount of recently. That's the Brewers, and Sherwin took on my personal favourite, which was the Butchers. And it was quite a narrow game, actually. I think I was smacking him upside the head for most of the game, but he was whittling points away from me, so it became very close right at the end. I had a game on Vassal. We've got a Vassal league going on, so I was playing a chap from South Africa for my round this week, which he fell into my trap. Again, I was playing the Brewers. I absorbed him into my 2-inch reach of knockdown death, and he did not escape. And I kind of steamrollered him a little bit before we called time on it. And then literally what time is it now? 5 a.m. So literally 6 hours ago, me and some buddies just finished the final scenario in the Skull and Shackles Pathfinder Adventure card game, which is a bit of a mouthful if you say it all in one hit. But which is a brutally hard card game, but it's kind of, it's fun. There's lots of pieces of card on the table, and you all playing different characters, and a lot of the characterization from the Pathfinder, adventure paths comes through in the card game. So really enjoying that. That's pretty much me.
Nice. That's a lot. Great. Well, I'll do mine real quick. So I don't have much because I've been traveling a lot, and more about that a little bit. But whilst I was traveling, we took the family to Alaska, which is one of those big bucket list items. Had a great time, and we happened to be on a cruise ship. And so in the cruise ship, there is a little gaming area there, but of course, it's mostly like they did have some, they had like giant sized Jenga and things like that. But I played a lot of backgammon and chess with my girls, and they both like those games. So those are great. It's fun to watch my girls trying to master chess. It's been exciting to play. But in other news, my oldest daughter Rose now is we're back from that, and she's doing summer camp, actually doing Java coding camp. But while she's at Java, so she's texting me every day telling me how Java coding camp is going, which is great. And she's like, Dad, today was super cool because after coding we got to play Munchkin and it was really fun. I'm like, oh, well, so I got to fix this situation here. I mean, you can teach my kids Java, but don't be telling them that
Munchkin. There's nothing wrong with Munchkin if you only play it once per set.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, all right. Yes, but Munchkin is fun, the first time. Anyway, then, so Craig, you'll like this. I broke out Golem Arcana again.
Golem Arcana?
That's the one, yes. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy that game a lot. We played.
It's a great game.
My daughters and I were like, we should play this again. So we broke it out, and then while my oldest daughter's been away at summer camp, my youngest daughter has been playing the heck out of it. And she loves it. It's just a great fun game. And the more you play that game, because when you first play it a couple times, it does feel a bit confusing because you forget, like, do I tap the base with this little cool pen? And this is the game, for those who don't remember, this is the game that was launched at last year's Gen Con. And pre-painted models on these cool bases, and you get all these tile mats that are the terrain board you play on. But it also comes with a, for lack of a better term, like a stylus, a digital stylus. And then it's got free software you download to your tablet. And what you do is you then pair your pen to your tablet. And what you can then do is tap spots on the board. Basically, you tap the base of your model, tap where you want it to move on the board, and you move it. And then when you attack, you can tap the model or elements of the card. So if you imagine like a War Machine card for a minute and all the different attack rows that are on the card, imagine you can tap the actual sword icon on the War Machine card and then tap your opponent's model, and it swings the sword and does all the damage and everything.
That sounds cool.
It's actually very cool. And
very cool.
One of the coolest things about it is because they've got it all digital, they're able to do a few things in there that you can't normally do. One of the coolest mechanics is, so it's alternating activation, so I move a model and then actually how it works is each side gets a certain number of action points per turn, right? So I might get 4 or 6 action points and you might get, depends on the game size. And then every model can do different things that take action points. So if I walk, it's 2 action points. If I fly, maybe it's 3 action points, but I can ignore intervening terrain. If I zap you with a lightning bolt from and the fluff here is all these like humans driving these giant, mechanical, magically mechanical golems that are the size of like small buildings, right? So they shoot lightning and they swing giant scythes and they cast spells and all that. But what's cool is you can pick to move the same golem over and over again, or you can pick to have the same golem attack with his same weapon over and over again, and use all your action points in one spot. But every time you do a repeated action with the same golem, the action point costs go up, and then you have to wait and not do that same action again for another full turn for it to cool down. And this is all captured. So doing that kind of bookkeeping yourself, right, with 30 models or whatever you got going on there would be a pain, but the computer does all that for you. And it's really pretty slick mechanic because all of a sudden you feel like you really want to run up there with the lead guy, and he's swinging and he's doing all this stuff, and now the bad guy golem there is on the objective and he's almost dead. But now to swing again, it's going to be 6 action points. It's your whole turn. Do you do that, or do you develop your side and move the rest of your models up? And so it's a very simple game to learn, but there's a surprising amount of depth. There's also some really cool army building depth, because not only do you choose your golems for your list, and it's a point-based system where you pick how many points you're going to play in all your golems, but then also you pick what they call the knights, which are basically the drivers of your golems. So imagine you're picking Voltron and all the drivers of the various elements. And some of the super huge golems have multiple knights in them. And if you, some knights are 0 points. They cost you nothing, but they basically do nothing. But if you add the fancier knights, all of a sudden you get new special abilities in your golems that are all built into the software. And then there's actually these things called relics that you can collect at conventions and they're little cards that you can tap to get other superpowers you can embed in your golems. And then there's like divine, entities that come into the game, and you can have a sponsor for your team and then, or your side. And then as you gain mana from destroying enemy golems or sitting on certain mana wells on the table, you can, so there's a lot of levels of detail in this game. The scenarios are great too. So when we first played it after Gen Con last year, there were really only a couple of scenarios in the software. Now there's a whole scenario generator in the software, so you can build your own maps, you can build your own objectives. There's a bunch of different scenarios ranging from kill each other to hold the objectives to all these other things. And now they've added 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 8 player scenarios if you want as well. So now you can mix and match and have really, really interesting game battles. So they've really been keeping up with it, launching new miniatures. I'm really looking forward to going by their booth at Gen Con and seeing how they've expanded the game. It's just a lot of fun. It's a great, fast, fun game, and it's great for my youngest daughter because while she likes, you know, I mentioned before on the show, my oldest daughter and I both love War Machine. We play it quite a bit. She loves collecting. She loves the painting. She loves the game. My youngest daughter likes the idea of miniature games, but she's just not a hobbyist. She doesn't want anything to do with painting or modeling. And so Golem Arcana really hits that because it's all pre-painted. It's got the feeling of modeling, but it's got that little video game thing in there, and she's more that video game kid, right? So she's got that in there as well, and she's really digging it. So yeah, a lot of fun with that one. Really enjoying it.
And glad to hear that they're keeping up with it.
Yeah, it's going great. So I hope they're doing well. And at Gen Con, they got a bunch of tournaments, a bunch of other events going on. So I'm looking forward to that.
They look like they've got loads of golems as well now.
They really do. And what's also cool is they've got a whole league going on now what's cool about how the software works is, so what's also cool is as you play in their software, so every game you play, the results go back to their servers. Okay. And they actually tweak the point values of the golems and all the bits in their servers based on who's winning and losing. So the point values adjust over time in real time based on big data essentially as games are played. So it preserves game balance as you go, which is really interesting. But also they have these scenarios now that are part of their main sort of universe background fluff. And as these battles resolve also, those inform how the fluff changes. And they got a couple of big events going on at Gen Con that are also going to change the universe in the background as well. So they got a lot of that going on also, it's just a lot of fun. I think they're doing the right things, right? They've got, major competitive events. They've got fun, fluffy stuff. They've got, they're making sure the game balance is maintained. They're creating new scenarios. They've got new pieces coming out all the time. So yeah, I think they're doing well. So, I'm hoping they keep going. Finally, I got to play. I played Forbidden Stars. I think I mentioned this in the last episode. I played Forbidden Stars with my daughters a couple times, and they really liked it. And now I've played it for the first time with a 4-player all gamers. So Forbidden Stars is the brand new fantasy.
Hey, your daughters are gamers. Don't try to do.
Well, I mean, yes, I'm sorry, but I mean, like veteran adult gamers, if you will. Forbidden Stars is the new Fantasy Flight Warhammer 40,000 themed game that I'm excited about because it uses it's based heavily on the old StarCraft board game rules. So, what I mean by that is it's a tile board with tiles you can move around and change your layout. You're commanding, there's 4 armies in it. There's the Eldar, the Orcs, Chaos, and Space Marines, right? All themed with, it's Fantasy Flight, right? So you got tons of cool plastic bits. You've got
billion cards.
You got a couple different ground forces that are represented by flags. So they're the only ones that'll disappoint. They're kind of small. But then you've got, also on your ground forces, you've got usually one large vehicle, like a battle wagon or a giblet grinder, something large like that, or a grav tank. And then you've got a really large vehicle like a Titan or a Stompa. And then you've got some space vehicles. So each faction also has 2 spacecraft, a smaller version and a larger version of the spacecraft. So on the table, you're really controlling planets with your ground units, and you've got spaceships units flying around in space. You put orders down in each section, kind of like you do in the Game of Thrones board game or in the StarCraft board game, but order stacks start happening. So Craig might put an order in a quadrant or a sector to build or attack me, and I might put an order on top of that after he does that to build, and now my order is going to resolve first, so he's like nervous about that, so does he play another order on top of that to go first? Does he put it elsewhere? I really like that mechanic. So they've basically taken the StarCraft board game, cleaned the rules up a bit, refined it a bit, put it all in a 40K wrapper, and I have to say so far, really, really pleased with it. I'm sure we're going to do a full review of this not too distant future because it's a lot of fun. So, that's all the board games I've been playing. What about modeling? I got to feel like you all have been doing a lot more modeling than I have, which is very little, unfortunately. But Craig, what have you been doing?
Okay, I'm just gonna list it all.
Okay, go for it.
Because it's been a while.
I'll get ready the achievement button. Here I go.
I finished up my Morticians for Guild Ball, so that was exciting.
Nice.
I did 3 more custom goals. One for the Alchemists for my friend Russ, if he ever gets around to playing a game.
Yes, I'm ready. I'm chomping at the
One
bit.
for the Brewers, and one generic goal that I can bring with me for anybody who doesn't have a cool goal. And I then painted 2 Free Blades warbands, 8 Trillions, which is what they call elves, and 8 Grular, which is basically a Mongol-like faction. So 16 models there. I painted up 2 full fighter packs for Star Wars Armada, one for the Imperials and one for the Rebels. So that gives me 2 of each, so I can field all kinds of cool fighters.
Nice.
I painted up 3 more Rebel Troopers for Imperial Assault, which gives me 9 Rebel Troopers to play with now.
Nice.
And I painted up 2 more Rebel Saboteurs, which gives me 4 Rebel Saboteurs to play with when I play that game next.
Wow, you've been a busy boy. So I've done no modeling. However, I did get my Star Wars Armada battle foam. So I'm very excited about that.
Okay, well, there's that.
I can store it properly now, which
yeah.
is good. That's it. So how about you, Rich? Have you been doing any modeling lately?
I feel like I'm shamed by Craig there. That's a lot of stuff.
I went on vacation.
We're all shamed by Craig.
Fair enough. So I've managed to stick together the Age of Signar box. I cracked that open.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
I've gone through that and started going through. Lovely minis. And I also put together a game called Relics. I don't know if you heard of Relics. It's a company over here in the UK that's kind of little kind of puppet-esque kind of figures and small scales. Kind of cool.
Is it like...
I've stuck together.
When you say puppet-esque, is it like Puppet Wars from Malifaux?
It's a bit bigger, and it's kind of got that feel like little stitched together soldiers, like Britannians and kind of little elf-like nymph things and that. Cool. So it's quite a kind of little cool system. I've read the rulebook and stuff, and I've stuck together a couple of sets of that, so ready to crack out and play basically because it's quite an interesting little rule set.
Oh, very cool. Matt, how about yourself, sir?
Well, I'm actually painting right now.
Nice. This is multitasking. I got to get this down. I spent so many hours podcasting. I should be painting while I'm doing it. This is brilliant.
Exactly. So I'm currently painting, or I'm trying to come up with a new paint scheme for a Morticians team. I'm actually going with a monochrome one. I saw one of the Jen Haley videos where she did a monochrome Ranger, I think. So I'm trying to do a similar thing with the Morticians because I've noticed a few guys are doing Sin City inspired teams and armies, which basically involves like a Zenithal kind of pre-shading undercoat, and then they just splash a bit of red on it. And it actually looks quite good for surprisingly little effort. But I'm going to try and put a tiny bit of effort in and go with a mostly white and cream and ivory feeling Morticians team, because that is the colour of death, apparently.
Indeed.
I'm almost finished to a much higher standard, a Fisherman's team for Rich as a belated birthday present.
Aww.
And the thing that I am doing for that I've never done before is a scenic display base for the whole team.
Oh, wow.
Which was, surprisingly easy. So I watched a video on how to do the basic construction with the plasticard sides and how to actually cut the pieces, the circles out to put the models in and everything. And it's really good. I'm kind of addicted to it. So I've started putting together bits for said Morticians team that I'm painting up now. So I'm going to try and do a display base for every team that I do from now on.
Nice.
What else have I been doing modeling wise? So the only other thing that I have been doing is, started the flesh tones on a model from a Polish company called M. Project. Which I'm completely mangling, I'm sure. But they're like a real small run resin, high quality resin. It's 56 millimeter, which is a dwarf who's just chopped the head off of a goblin. It's called Gronkful. And I'm just enjoying painting him at the moment, just getting some basic flesh tones down. So that's me done.
Nice. Very cool. Awesome. So that is modeling. What about other geeky goodness like TV, movies, books?
Why don't you go first, Russ?
Me?
I'm sure you've done some stuff, even though you're on vacation.
I have. Well, I'm still enjoying BattleBots. So if you've not watched...
Right now, I'm seeing all kinds of tweets of what I think have to be like elitist, snobby science types.
What?
who are poo-pooing BattleBots and attacking it as not real science and dumbing down science and making science stupid. So defend BattleBots, and why is it actual fun science?
All right. First of all, I'm going to go on a limb right now and say all those people are idiots. Okay. I'm just going to go right out there and say it.
Right there.
Here's why they're idiots.
Okay.
Generally, people are concerned about STEM, right? Which is science, technology, engineering, and math. Okay.
Yes.
To get kids excited about that, what you want to do is do something that's fun, right? That also encourages that. So this is like when people think Minecraft is dumb, right? My daughters play a lot of Minecraft. Minecraft is essentially Legos and engineering in virtual space, right?
Yes.
My daughter's off at camp right now learning about Java, and the way I was able to get excited for her to go to a camp about Java is that it's Java programming to build your own custom Minecraft worlds and modules, right? Cool. So she's learning Java now, which is a totally cool career skill set, but she's learning it because it's related to something she enjoys, which is Minecraft.
Yeah, right.
All right. Robots are huge amounts of engineering. You don't believe me? Walk out into your garage and build something you can control with the remote control and drive it around your driveway and don't have it break down 16 times. Okay? Now take something like that and build it so it can shoot fire or bash another robot or be able to handle all the different complexities. So think about it as gamers, right? Think about all the planning and thinking you have to do when you build an army list to be able to deal with other army lists and all the creative thought processes and problem solving and all the kind of higher end math you're doing about what my probabilities are to hit if I take this, but he's got this guy that's got that, right? All that stuff we know as gamers are like great reasons to get people into gaming, right? All that stuff happens with BattleBots too, because you've got the situation where it's a controlled environment. You know, there's certain kinds of weapons that can and can't be used. There's dangers. There's hazards in the arena. There's like spinning blades come from the floor. There's hammers in the corner that your teammates can control. There's rules about robot size and weight. So you can have one giant robot, which is most people can do, but more creative teams have sub-mini robots that break off and shoot around. Their teammates can be driving them. For distraction pieces, there's different techniques you can do. There's different styles of robots. Some of them grapple. Some of them bash. Some of them have spinners. And then you got to think about, am I going to build a wedge robot that's simple and easy to maintain and can defend? So there's a lot of engineering going on here. And I used to have our old neighbors, their son Rob there's a lot of local robot fighting circuits as well that most people don't know about. And it's just a great way. These are guys that are really still hands-on, really doing stuff, really building things, really making stuff out of their hands. These are the makers. These are the creators. These are engineers. And this is what engineers do for fun, right? My grandfather, who was an engineer for Alcoa for, his whole life, they used to get together at night and race mechanical cars they would build in their spare time. So engineers just like to build stuff. And the way you get engineers is get young kids excited about building stuff. And so my kids love to watch BattleBots because this is a crazy fun thing, yet they're thinking about like, well, that must be so hard to build, Dad. Well, that was really clever they did that there. How do you think he's controlling that guy and handling that with one wheel blown off, you know? So there's a lot going on there. And I think anything that gets kids excited about science and engineering is a good thing. So really, get off your high horse and just have fun with it. It's basically...
Well, as a teacher, I agree with you 100%. And people who get into that mode and allow their sort of social views or whatever it is to cloud the reality of what things like this can do for students and for young people and for the laymen out there who are being drawn into it as well. To me, that says more about them than it does about what they're critiquing.
Yes.
So, anyway, I saw that and it brought up this whole thing in my head. So thank you for clarifying that, Russ. And I found that defense to be quite engaging. Continue.
Right. I might have got on my high horse there a little bit, but in any case,
you have to get on a high horse to attack other people on their high horses.
Right, exactly.
How else are you going to reach them?
Not going to go in as a footman against someone on a steed.
Exactly.
Right? That's ridiculous.
Unless you get like a big long spear. Man.
Also, I do want to give a quick shout out. So we took this Alaskan cruise. It was fabulous. We had a great time. Anyway, I ran into a couple. So we went. So there's several different ports of call in Alaska, and I'm not going to bore you all guys with my Alaskan trip. Except there's an intersection with geekdom. So. Our very first stop on our cruise trip was this little town called Skagway, Alaska. And just so people know, the cruise ships only go to the sliver of Alaska that runs along the coast of Canada. So we leave from Vancouver, you go up there. By the way, I was in Vancouver during the women's victory in the FIFA World Cup. US, go USA, woo, it was awesome. Anyway, so thought you soccer folks would appreciate that. So anyway, so going up the coast, little town called Skagway. So we're in this little town called Skagway. Now, to give you guys a sense of the size of these towns, we stopped in 3 towns on the cruise ship in Alaska. One was Skagway, one was Juneau, which is the capital of Alaska, and then one was Ketchikan, Alaska. To give you an idea of the size of cities in Alaska, Juneau, Alaska is the only state capital that has no roads in or out of it. The only way to get to Juneau, Alaska is with ship or by plane. Okay. Mm-hmm. It is the largest city in the U.S. in terms of land size, or Alaska in terms of land size, but there's not very much population there. So that's Juneau, the capital of the state. Skagway is even smaller. So Skagway, the closest traffic light to Skagway is 120 miles away, which is also where the closest Walmart is and the closest McDonald's is. And that's actually in the middle of the Yukon in Canada.
And that's, for those of you in other parts of the world, that is how we gauge civilization.
Well, it is.
How close you are to McDonald's and Walmart.
It's weird because I don't gauge civilization by McDonald's and Walmart, but when you hear people, people are remote when they're saying, I can't wait for my big trip to Walmart next week because that's what I can get, my underwear. It's like that kind of, just to understand how rural it is. There's no stoplights. There's nothing there. It's very small. The population of the town in the summertime swells to 6,000. And then it's like 2,000 when it's not tourist season. So very tiny little town. It looks very much like the Old West. Literally like you'd imagine the Old West would, with like swinging doors and old miner town. It's still that, basically. Anyway, so we're there and we're like doing different things. And we decided to go ziplining of all things in this beautiful mountainside whole thing. And our ziplining guides are awesome because not only were they great guys, but they also were total nerds. So one of them had his helmet all taped up to be Boba Fett, and the other one has his helmet to be all the different lands and magic. And so Nicole and I are immediately like, oh, but you guys are gamers. Like, oh, yeah. And started talking to him about, and of course, it turns out you're in Alaska, right? And you are there, and there's nothing happening in the winter because, the sun doesn't come up during the day in wintertime in Alaska. So, like, what do? You play games. So they're like totally like hardcore gamers. It was awesome. We're talking about gamers and nerdy stuff. It was awesome. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my two guides there, Sam and John. And when I told them that I had this little podcast, they're like, oh my God, I love podcasts. I got to listen to something while the sun's down all winter. So so it was awesome. So thank you guys for a fantastic time. That was a lot of fun. Now for TV shows, Craig, I don't think we need to debate this, but I just want to say there are two actually good sci-fi shows worth watching on the Sci-Fi Channel right now.
Okay.
One of them is Dark Matter.
Yeah.
And the other one is Killjoys.
Yes.
Now, I would say they're both worth watching.
Are you not watching Defiance anymore?
Oh, no, I love Defiance. Sorry.
You mean
yes.
new shows?
New shows, yes. Defiance is fantastic. I think Defiance is in its best season so far.
Yeah.
And I'm loving it, and I'm loving what they're willing to do, and it's really making you think, and it's doing a lot of the good stuff that sci-fi usually does, right?
Yes.
Matt and Rich, are you guys watching Defiance at all?
I picked it up in the first series. I was playing the game and watching it. I kind of dropped it after that, but I definitely want to pick it back up because of like where it's going. It looks quite good at the moment. So
yeah, definitely pick it up again, especially in this third season now. Craig, what are we in? Third, I guess.
I think it's third. Yeah.
Yeah, it's doing really well. Some very bold things happening. Anyway, so Defiance is great, but it's nice to see there's two new brand. Now, this is the weird thing. Sci-Fi Network, what are you doing? So they've got two new sci-fi series, and they launch them both at the same time, which I don't quite understand. You got two new ones. Why don't you spread them out to give, but anyway, that's fine. I'm not going to complain. But I'm really, my favorite of the two new ones, so Dark Matter and Killjoys, I'm going to lean towards Killjoys because I think the execution and the acting and the dialogue writing is better. But I think Dark Matter has got a really interesting premise that is really cool, but I'm worried about it because I think Dark Matter, which unfortunately with Dark Matter, I'm not loving the acting very much, and I don't know if that's the directing or the acting. It's I'm not loving the characters individually in Dark Matter. What I'm loving about Dark Matter is sort of the mystery and the situation they're in. In Killjoys, I'm actually liking the characters, and I really don't really care what they're doing. The characters are so fun to watch interact that they could just go forever and do nothing as long as they're acting the way they are. I think they're hilarious. But Dark Matter is like, there's a mystery going on, which is cool, and a discovery going on. And what I'm nervous about with that is once some of that stuff unravels, it's really hard to keep a sustainable series going and keep unraveling mysteries, right? So I'm nervous about that. What are your thoughts, Craig?
I agree. I would say that the concept of Dark Matter is better than the concept of Killjoys, but that the execution of Killjoys is currently better than the execution of Dark Matter.
Yeah.
And I think we both agree that now, without diminishing either of the source materials that I'm referring to, I think we both agree that Killjoys is sort of an attempt to try to bring in the dynamics and the sort of the ambiance of Firefly and Guardians of the Galaxy kind of. In fact, the logo for it is almost a blatant ripoff of the poster for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
If you look at the logo for Killjoys. And I think clearly that's what they're going for. And I think that it's hit or miss in their success on that score. But there are moments in every episode where you're like, oh my God, am I watching Firefly?
Well,
like sometimes like something that will be happening in the background, or they're doing a good job of creating a world, which in my opinion, the best way to do, and I talked about this when we were talking about Almost Human, the best way to create a science fiction world for your book, TV show, etc., is to let it be.
Right.
You know, don't be like, hey guys, this is science fiction, or this is fantasy. We have a bunch of weird names for everything. It's create a world and just let it be in the background. Just as long as it's fully realized. You don't need to get in people's faces, and you see that a lot in both of these shows, really, but more successfully, I think, in Killjoys.
Yeah, I think Dark Matter does exposition a little bit to explain the world more than Killjoys. Killjoys just lets it be, and I think what Killjoys is fun about is I think Killjoys is definitely there are definitely Firefly moments, and I think it's the dialogue. So Joss Whedon in Firefly in particular is really good at these really crazy bantery situations, and Killjoys got a lot of those moments in it. So you feel like I think it's reminiscent of Firefly, but it's really Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, right? It's definitely inspired by that. The music, it's got this sort of crazy rock soundtrack that just kicks in when every action moment. But they, like Guardians, it could have come across really campy and lame. But just like Guardians really nailed it, these guys also figured it out. And it's got sort of the J.J. Abrams lens flare everywhere. It's just got all those elements of sort of like recent sci-fi are kind of rolled up into one, but in a way that's almost feels like an homage instead of a ripoff, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's really, really good. It's almost like this is now what modern sci-fi looks like, and we're just going to run with it in a TV show, you know, and it's great. Whereas Dark Matter, I really like what they're thinking about there, but it's almost like this is the Jane character. This is the sword guy.
They're not.
You know?
I'm not getting a Firefly sense from.
You know what it is? The one guy that's the guns, that sort of the grumpy dude with guns, is really bothering me in that show.
Really?
Because I feel like he's supposed to be. I think
he's one of the best guys.
I think he's terrible. I think he's supposed to be Jane, but I can't.
No, he's not supposed to.
Oh, he's not.
No,
so good.
He's not supposed to be.
Anyway, not like that.
You're pulling a Harry Potter.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But anyway, so have you guys seen either of these shows?
I think that Matter's been released in June, I think, over here.
It's actually on at the moment.
Yeah, it's on. There's been a few episodes of that, but Killjoys hasn't been out over here yet, I'm pretty sure. Like
it will be.
To me, they both look like the kind of if they survive into season 2 and they get a little bit more budget, then they could grow from there. But Killjoys puts me off. I'm just looking at it on IMDb, and anything that has to. A fun-loving trio of bounty hunters attempts to remain impartial as they chase deadly warrants.
No, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it sounds campy.
Fun-loving bounty hunters? Really?
But think about Guardians of the Galaxy. A plant, a raccoon, and a big dude go out. I mean, it's like the same sort of thing, but it just works. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it does.
But it's like people who kind of, I don't know, wear Homer Simpson ties and describe themselves as zany.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Generally not zany.
Give it a try, though. I think it nails it. I like a couple things about the show. You know, and the reason it reminds me, I've also compared it to Farscape a little bit, and the reason it reminds me of that is that it's got sort of the ship has a personality too, right? So the ship's got a personality, much like Andromeda or Farscape, and so there's a lot of those little things, but it's just nailing it right. And I don't know, I'm really enjoying Killjoys a lot. So it's one of my.
It did take me a couple episodes to get into Killjoys, to be honest.
Yeah, I like it. Now, speaking of something, I think we can all agree on, who has not seen Ant-Man yet?
I have not seen Ant-Man.
I haven't seen it. No.
Oh my God, gentlemen, you're missing one of the best movies of the summer. I'm just telling you right now.
Oh, apparently, if you get an achievement for setting up a game and not playing it, I have seen the trailer to Ant-Man.
Oh, excellent. Okay. That'll count.
Right.
That's success.
Right, okay.
So here's my story. So my youngest daughter, who's a huge comic movie fan, wanted to go see it. My wife and my oldest daughter will not see it because ants. So they're both scared of ants. They don't like ants. Clearly, any movie called Ant-Man is going to have a lot of ants in it, so they wouldn't go. So my wife's on travel. My oldest daughter's away at camp, so my youngest daughter and I are like, movie night! And we went out, and she was on her edge of her seat the whole time, just fully engaged, laughing. it's a lot of people are comparing it to Guardians. It's like that in that it's fun. So it doesn't take itself seriously at all, but it executes really, really well. You think about the Ant-Man hero and what he does, and you're kind of like, I don't know, this could be, but it's kind of like, if you think about Guardians before going into it, it's sort of the same way. It really nails it. I think Marvel did it again. It's really a fantastic film. Some nice tie-ins to some of the Avengers stuff, but not overdone. Really liked it a lot. So, highly, highly, highly recommend Ant-Man. And if you're not sure about it, just go see it. You'll enjoy it.
Cool.
So let's see. Last couple things and I'll get out of the way. So first, still playing Witcher, enjoying it. For books, I'm reading, I'm still in this whole Parasol Protectorate series, my guilty pleasure. Finished Soulless, finished Changeless, finished Blameless, and now I'm reading Heartless. Still loving that series. Gail Courage is awesome.
I sense a theme.
It is a theme. So Craig, if people want to listen to their favorite books on Audible, what should they do?
Well, if you want to check out Audible and you haven't yet, first of all, why haven't you?
Yes.
Second of all, go to the website, the d6generation.com. Please, we're begging you to do it this way. Go to the d6generation.com. You'll find the icon in the margin, right hand, I believe, or left hand?
Right hand side.
Right hand side. Click on it. It'll bring you right to the sign up page for 30 days of free access to Audible. You become a full member of Audible for 30 days, access to all the cool the sales. Right now there's a $4.99 sale going on. Especially during the summer, there's sales all the time. You get one free credit with which you can buy almost any book in their catalog that is yours forever and ever and ever to keep. You don't lose it if you decide not to stick with the membership afterwards. And even then, why wouldn't you? You get a credit a month for $14, I think it is, which is about half the price of a normal audiobook. I listen to audiobooks. It completely changed my listening habits in my car and commuting. Audible did. And I still read books and I listen to books. So I'm doubling the amount of books that I'm sort of absorbing in my life now because of this. And, I highly, highly recommend you try it out. If you haven't tried it out yet, there's nothing to lose. 30 days, access to all those cool sales, access to the whole catalog, and one free book of your choice. So there's really no downside to that.
Nice. So let's do guests first. So what have you guys been doing for movies, books, and TV shows? Matt, why don't you start? It's time.
So books-wise, I am onto the second book in the Lowtown series by Daniel Polanski, which I'm really enjoying, thoroughly recommend. He's got a real kind of Joe Abercrombie, David Gemmell kind of hard, gritty edge to his writing, which is really good. It's hugely character-driven. What else have I been reading? It's slightly related. A book called Football Cliches, which is brilliant fun. And it's interesting how football commentary develops its own vernacular. And so things that I can't, as a football fan and have been for 35, 40 years, take completely for granted. When you realize and you see it written down, you just think, this is ridiculous. This makes no sense at all. What is the whole on a football field? What else? Black Sails season 2, just finished that.
Ooh,
that
nice.
was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Cannot wait for season 3.
I agree.
I got to catch up on that show.
So good. But that's another TV show that the first season was really strong, and then they clearly got a bigger budget, and season 2 was then awesome. And then on top of that, been playing lots of video games, so lots and lots of League of Legends. Picked up the new Batman, kind of sad with that a little bit. I don't know if you guys have played it, Arkham Knight.
Yes, I haven't played the latest version though. How is the latest version?
It's raining, and I kind of want it to stop raining because it makes my eyes hurt after a while. It's just, please stop raining. I just want to look at the beautiful city that you made, but I can't because the raining and like Batman, right? I don't need a car to help me climb a wall. Please stop bringing the car in. It's not needed.
Nice.
And then and then a whole bunch of FIFA. So I'm lucky enough at work we have a PS4 and an Xbone, and we've got we've got a full racing setup as well because we make racing games. So there's lots of stuff going on at work. But FIFA is my guilty pleasure there. Nice. So yeah,
coolest job ever, dude. Coolest job ever. That's awesome.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, except for being a guy that just builds a soccer miniature game all day. That'd be kind of a cool job.
That's right.
Great. What about you, Rich?
I've done quite a few different things. I've been reading. Actually, Matt will know this. I'm not the biggest reader in the world, but when I do read, I kind of get into some. So I've been reading Wool by Hugh Howey.
Okay, yeah.
It's kind of like a sci-fi kind of Silo-esque kind of Fallout feel.
That's on my reading list. So what do you think of Wool?
It's really good. It was one of them that gripped me from the first kind of chapter in. I'm just getting into it now, and it's just kind of this real kind of depressing look on life in this kind of post-apocalyptic world and this kind of isolated society. So it's really, really good. And I can't wait to carry on with that and do the whole trilogy. So I definitely recommend that one. So yeah, that's been a big one on the book list. Apart from the ton of rule books I've been reading as well recently.
Nice.
But they don't class. That's job work. But yeah, I also took a trip to Whitby Abbey, Dracula fame, Bram Stoker's. So that was kind of cool. So it was nice to actually go up there. It's something on my list. I'm a big vampire fan, so to be able to go up there and take some photos of the Abbey and the kind of eerie feel of the whole town and everything. So that was very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, which was cool. And then films-wise, I've watched 2 films recently that I've been wanting on my list. So the first was Mad Max.
Oh, yes.
I absolutely love Mad Max. I was sat there in giddy excitement and texting Matt when I come out of the thing. Like, this is brilliant. You know, it's such a good film. Just absolute unending, all from start to finish. Just the adrenaline and everything. It's just fantastic.
Agree.
Oh, it's so good. If you haven't seen it, you definitely need to see it. It's a proper experience film at the end as we watch it. And the second film I just watched yesterday was Jurassic World.
And what did you think?
I really liked it. I really liked it. Yeah. I think it's kind of recaptured my childhood. I remember as a kid going to the cinema and sat there watching Jurassic Park and that first scene, you know, with the Brontosaurus and the trees and it's just like, you know, you kind of blown away as a kid, and then it captured a lot of that essence of how good the Jurassic series was, you know. So you kind of ignore 2 and 3, I think, and go with Park and
it
World.
becomes a series of 2.
Yeah, I think you're good then. Yeah, watch those
I think
2.
you're good.
Yeah.
I agree.
So yeah, really good. I think again,
kind of like Indiana Jones is probably a series of 2.
I think Chris Pratt is fantastic again. So really, really strong in it, and it's really good. So I'd recommend definitely those 2.
Excellent.
Great. Nice. Very good. Well, Craig, why don't you hit us with your achievements, man?
Okay, I'm going to bring us on home.
All right.
A Song of Ice and Fire Listener Fest is finally coming to a conclusion. I am now into A Dance with Dragons, and I'm finally getting to the yes, this is why it sucks phase. I mean, I'm disappointed phase. I'm resenting every minute I'm in my car listening to characters I know have no future. I'm resenting all of the open-ended threads that I know aren't tied together yet when he's adding new things. There's all kinds of, when you're writing a novel, there's, you know, if you go take a class or whatever, and I'm a big fan of throwing anything away. It's a creative endeavor, follow your own rules, that kind of thing. But when everybody has very similar rules, you've got to at least say, there's probably something there. For instance, you're on the 5th installment of a 7-installment story. You should not be introducing major plot points now.
Right.
You've got 3 installments left to wrap everything up, and you haven't even begun to wrap up one thing, except for the thing you introduced in the 5th installment. So which is weird to me. So my experience re-listening to the whole thing has not changed my feelings one bit. 1, 2, and 3 were awesome. I enjoyed 4, and 5 is driving me insane.
Huh.
So that's sad. Reading wise, I found a gem. I was super excited when I found it. There is an anthology, a Dresden anthology by Jim Butcher. 3 linked novellas, all with him dealing with Bigfoot. Yeah. And it's called Working for Bigfoot. And it's 3 stories that actually the main thing I enjoyed so much about them is that they all take place much earlier in his timeline than the current books. The current books are very heavy. They're very dark. They're very, you know, the world is in the balance kind of things. These stories sort of harken back to the good old days of Dresden when he wasn't like the most important human on the entire planet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're really fun. They're classic Butcher writing. They're classic fun stories. One weird thing is if you get it from Amazon, I got mine through my Kindle. Like there's a lot of negative reviews of people who don't know that it's 3 stories because they don't read anything, I guess, because it fully says like it's an anthology, 3 stories, linked stories, blah blah blah, previously published. They were all published in other anthologies. It's all there for you to read if you read it. And clearly these people didn't read it and they're leaving 1-star reviews.
Huh.
Except for my favorite 1-star review is from a guy who couldn't buy it. He was in Australia and it wasn't available, so he gave it a 1-star review. Like seriously, when we were talking about the battle bots, things that you do that reflect more on you than on what you think you're commenting on. That's a similar scenario. TV, exactly what Russ said. Plus, I would say my parents are totally hooked on this new show called Wayward Pines.
Oh.
Anybody heard of it?
No.
I have heard of that.
Very intriguing idea. And then my parents, like, the show did something and my parents were like, oh my God. And they were ranting about it and they hated it. And that got me like, oh my God, if it's really that bad, I need to see it. So I like binge watched it over 2 days to catch up. And it really, really snags me. There's all kinds of cool stuff going on. It's an amazing concept. And then something happens and you're like, what? And then I was paying a little more attention to I still enjoy it. I mean, it's dumb science. I talk about people on their high horses getting upset. This is what they should be getting upset about. But, but like I paid more attention to the credits, the episode that made me cock my head sideways. And there it was all along. I would have known what was going on. Executive producer, M. Night Shyamalan.
Shamalama ding dong.
Shamalama ding dong.
There it is. Not a surprise.
This is The Happening, the TV show. And the Earth is so upset with
They
humans.
really are
they've done
wayward
something
pines.
horrible.
They're literally wayward pines.
They would really are wayward pines. Exactly.
Why are those pines?
But no, I mean, if you kind of like blink yourself against the science and just go with it, it's a really, really cool concept. So I'm really enjoying that.
Is it a bit like Lost? I mean, Lost has been out for long enough not to count spoilers, but the lever moment. Do you remember the lever moment?
Yeah.
In the submarine thing?
Yeah, and then the whole thing then moved, and you're like,
Yes.
do me a favor. That you're just jumping the shark there.
Yeah, no, this isn't that bad. It's basically you learn the big mystery.
Right.
And the big mystery makes you go, what? They don't change the whole world with something that's really bizarre. It's literally you get in every episode you're getting these cool bits and pieces, and it becomes like every episode the world kind of widens out a little bit more, and you're like, wow, okay. And then there's an episode I think it's literally called The Answers, and it gives you like, oh yeah, okay, so here's what's going on, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. Wow, what?
M. Night Shyamalan definitely burnt me after Signs. Like that was it.
Oh my God! Don't even get me started about M. Night Shyamalan. Like an A+, a B+, and then F's.
Yeah.
Everything.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so I would recommend Wayward Pines, especially if you're, either really loose on science or you can willingly suspend your scientific disbelief.
Right.
The Last Ship has started again. My TiVo did something bizarre and failed to record the first episode and then couldn't find it for 3 weeks, so I had to wait. So I just watched the season premiere the other night. I'm liking it still. I don't know. And they need to get back out to sea. It is called The Last Ship after all. I still find it intriguing that the guy who wrote the novel The Last Ship still gets credit for the TV show, despite the fact that other than the fact that the TV show has a ship and The Last Ship, the novel has a ship. And I think they may or may not be named the same thing. Otherwise, they're completely different stories. But cool for him that he gets his name on there. And then Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, still watching that. I think that's over now, but I haven't finished watching it. It's on my TiVo, but I'm still enjoying that immensely. The resurrection of magic in 1803 England by BBC America. Really enjoying that. Movies wise, the only movie I was able to go see so far was Minions. But I did enjoy it. I have a certain affinity for Minions.
Because you look like a minion.
Because I don't look like a minion.
You look like the minion, the super overlord.
I look like Gru.
Right, exactly.
and I'm a high school teacher. We automatically have an affinity for Minions.
Right.
And then I did a lot of writing over vacation. Vacation for me is not really vacation. I go and I spend about 8 hours a day in Panera all by myself, and I get more writing done in Panera than I get at home. I did 32,000 words in 4 days, which is crazy.
That seems like a lot.
And yeah, generally speaking, like I guess the average is 4,000 to 6,000 on like a full work day. I had 10,000 word days, which were crazy over the last 3 weeks. And in 3 weeks, I've done 80% of a novel.
Wow.
So this novel it could be good, could be bad. I don't know. It could be going this fast because it's going to really stink. But it's going very quickly, and I'm hoping to have it all done before Gen Con, so it's not hanging over my head. So that'll be fun.
Nice.
And then the final thing is, so there's this, Eric is a listener and a patron and, semi-local friend down in, I always forget, Massachusetts, Connecticut area. He's one of the epic guys. And he emailed me, hey, have you heard about Frostgrave? The day after Sherpa emailed me and said, hey, have you heard about Frostgrave? So I was like, what is this Frostgrave? And it's Osprey is making its own games now, obviously. And it is their sort of answer to Mordheim, which I already talked about a little bit. It's by a guy named Joseph A. McCullough, a British gentleman, of course. And it's got its own miniature range that goes with it, but you don't have to use the miniatures with it. It's kind of designed to be, hey, use whatever miniatures you have, and here's this really cool. It's very light. It's very beer and pretzels. It doesn't pretend to be anything that it's not. It's sort of tongue in cheek through the whole thing. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's a very, very, the rule book is beautiful. The thing that I think they did that was genius was the rule book. It's a $25 rule book available on Amazon for pre-order for $13. Right. So everybody locally got one except for Russ. And Russ didn't take any part in any of those emails at all.
I'm still behind on Guild Ball. I can't be starting Frostgrave now. That's ridiculous.
But anyway, but you don't need to buy models. That was the cool thing. So it was bizarre because we had not seen the game. The game didn't exist in America. They did a little pre-order thing in England, and everybody in England got theirs early. So there were reviews coming out. The reviews were almost all positive. We got all excited. I was buying miniatures, getting ready for it. We pre-ordered, it came, and I almost got a game in last night and then didn't. So still super excited. You're going to hear about Frostgrave a lot, I think. You heard about it in, the last lost chapter a little bit, I think. And in fact, I know you did. Unless you didn't listen to the last chapter, in which case, why not? Not lost chapter, Did You Ever Notice? Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I think you're going to hear a lot. I've got a lot of cool terrain ideas in my head. It's a giant frozen wasteland of a city. So I'm thinking waterfront with ships frozen into the water, a la Frozen.
Right.
So, So anyway.
There's a song there somewhere.
There's a song in there somewhere, and I will have it on an MP3 playing on a loop to drive my opponent crazy.
Excellent. Brilliant.
And that's achievements for me.
Right. That's achievements.
That's a long achievements, but that's 4 guys, active guys. It's gotta be done.
Busy.
So here's the final score. Ripley has 147 victory points. Hicks has 132. I have 117. And Hudson has 87. That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over. What the frick are we going to do now? Put the game away.
Fred, now it's time to talk about our friends at battlefoam.com.
Battlefoam.com.
Exactly right. Is that Crossmasters, Craig? I'm right here.
Look at the Crossmasters stuff.
Oh, man. They got spots for the trees.
That's crazy.
They got spots for all the guys. My girls love Crossmasters, and I got to get the whole Crossmasters.
I'm telling you that. I've been looking for Crossmasters
This booth
Forever.
at Gen Con is going to be very dangerous for me, Greg. Very dangerous indeed. I will have a hard time.
And don't forget,
walking
it'll
by.
be connected to the Wild West Exodus booth, so dangerous
know.
for me as
Double
well. I mean,
danger.
the mob scene is just crazy.
Double danger. And then also what's great is now that Battle Foam is synonymous with the best foam on the planet.
Yes.
And the best cases on the planet.
Absolutely.
But let's say you've got some of their foam and you switch them in and out with your cases all the time and you just need a place to store that foam.
That's right. They've got so many storage options now, Russ. They run the gamut all the way
They do.
from the really quick, eco-friendly cardboard containers
Yeah, right.
all the way up to Black Label, which you can,
Drive a truck
drive over
over
a tank. Over
Drive
with
a tank right over it. And I have checked my bags before in the airlines and they have survived no problems. Models came through perfectly well.
As have I.
So, you definitely can get the job done with Battle Foam, and now they have options for all budget levels as well. So go check it all out over at battlefoam.com. Hoo-yah!
And now, in an attempt to bring a small amount of dignity and decorum to this otherwise base form of entertainment, and I use the term loosely, I am proud to present... Oh, get on with it. It's time for App of the Ep. Seriously, Wakeland, I used to have my own segment, and now I'm relegating to announcing this pap. Hey, you're lucky we still use you.
Hey, welcome back to another App of the Ep. This time around, I want to go with the game. It's been a little while now, but my girls and I just discovered it. It is Trials Fusion. Now, those of you who are longtime Xbox fans, and I think this is on other platforms as well, but we discovered this on Xbox a while ago. There was a game called Trials HD, and this game was extremely hard. It was a side-scrolling motorcycle driving game. It did defy the laws of physics, but basically you use the joysticks to rotate the motorcycle, pull it back a wheelie or turn it, and then you use the trigger just to go faster and slower. And you brake and try to go to these really, really bizarre courses. Well, Trials Fusion is the new version for the Xbox One, and it is the single-player mode's a little weird, but what attracted my girls to it was that there are variants now on motorcycles you can get, so you can always upgrade your motorcycles and get different motorcycles. But this particular version, in addition to all the motorcycles and the quad ATVs, you can also get a cat with a gun riding a unicorn. That's right. Cat, gun, unicorn. How can you possibly go wrong with a game like that? And yes, you do control the unicorn as if it were a motorcycle, which, it's a little weird. But anyway, the game is good fun, and it's really, the single-player experience is okay. But what this game really, really shines is multiplayer on the couch. So if you got 2 or 3 or 4 folks in your home, everybody grab a controller, and you can raise up to 4 players at the same time. What's slick about it is you do not actually do split screen. Instead, it's a giant side-scroller screen of the track you're on, with each motorcycle being in different lanes, riding in parallel. And what's kind of cool about it is if one player gets too far ahead, such that another player drops off the screen, they actually make it part of the game. And what ends up happening is you often have to respawn, which actually costs you a failure. So if you wipe out, you just respawn at the next checkpoint and keep going. And every time you wipe out, that's a negative score on how well you finish. So you get points for where you place in the race. You get 0 points if you DNF, do not finish. And then you get bonus points, or you lose less points if you don't wipe out too often, or people get too far ahead of you. Really slick little game, a lot of fun, very affordable now on Xbox Live, and that is Trials Fusion. Check it out.
Thank you for listening to another scintillating edition of App of the Ep, a segment in which,
Hey, less of that, more just getting on with the show.
seriously, Wakeland, you are like school in summer. No class.
Hey, and welcome back. And of course, since we have the men behind Guild Ball, we figured we'd kind of
We'd talk about football. No.
We'd be kind of remiss if we didn't actually talk about the game here. So I think we should do that.
We'd probably have a lot of very angry, upset people out there.
We would. So this game, Matt and Rich, this is obviously the game is doing really well. People are really excited about it. It's getting a lot of buzz shortly after its release here. But let's talk a little bit about how you guys got started and how you decided to actually go ahead and do a game. And I guess
But first,
yes,
we've got a little tradition that we need to go through first.
We do.
You guys, this is your first time on the show. We don't really know who you are. Our listeners don't know, why should they listen to you? And so what we have to ask, guys, Matt and Loxam, are you now or have you ever been a gamer? Matt, what is your gamer origin story? Where did it all begin for you? Where did it all start to go wrong?
I am definitely a gamer, and I have been for a very long time. I'm quite an old man, so I've been gaming for over 30 years now. And it all started off with D&D, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and that was my gateway.
Nice. As for many.
Yes. As many, yes.
Yep.
Was it the red box?
No, it was straight into Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Then you do not get to call yourself an old man.
No, well, I bypassed it. I thought I was clearly, way beyond just the basic
Advanced.
box set.
Right. Oh, I see.
That's the gimmick.
Okay.
You're great for the advanced box.
I got it. All right.
So how old were you when
Right
you first
for the
started?
throat. Okay.
How old were you for your first game of Dungeons and Dragons?
I was 10, I think, or 11.
Nice.
And then I started. Well, from there I started painting the minis, and I really enjoyed painting the minis. And at that time, it was painting with the Humbrol enamel-based paints.
Yep.
So they were all universally ghastly when I finished painting them. But yeah, that's when I first picked up a brush as well. So, and since then, expanded through, and pretty much all my life and all of my professional career, I've been revolved around gaming. So I play lots of games, and I've made lots of games.
Now you're talking about your professional life and gaming. Can you talk a little bit about that? Tell us, when you're saying that you do a lot of gaming in your professional life, what exactly does that entail?
So by day, I am an executive producer making video games. I've done that for 15 years now. So I've made. Also, claim to fame was I was one of the producers on the first Lego Star Wars game.
Ooh.
No.
Yeah, which was very cool. I still remember the pitch meeting where we all dressed up in Lego HQ in west of London, and we were all dressed up as Jedis, and we were running around the boardroom with lightsabers, showing people how cool Star Wars was.
Did you have to pantomime everything? Because in the first Lego Star Wars, no one spoke, right?
Yeah, no, so this is what we were literally trying to get the concept across, that we were acting out a scene from the film without saying anything,
right.
In order for our studio manager to get it. Right. And the only thing, if you notice in Lego, all Lego games, are the shiny floors. Right. Because the guy, Tom, who was in charge, had this absolute obsession with reflective mapping, and he wanted shiny floors. Because to him, nothing said next gen more than shiny floors.
Nice.
So,
that's awesome. That's the best pitch story I've ever heard.
I know, it's cool, right? And then from there, I was lucky enough to go on and work on a couple of decent GameCube games. But then I started working for a company called Ninja Theory. I was the exec producer on Heavenly Sword, Enslaved, Devil May Cry, Remember Me, and I'm now working in a free-to-play game environment. So we're looking to take on Clash of the Clans head-to-head. We're making a game called Dawn of Titans, which is a free-to-play iOS game.
Nice. That's quite an impressive portfolio you have there. It's awesome.
So you've been keeping busy.
Yeah. Definitely.
All right, Loxam. No pressure.
No pressure.
But where did you start?
Pressure. Well, I'm come from the younger generation. I'll start there.
He always brings the age thing.
Wow. No, I started with Hero Quest. I remember my dad buying a set of Hero Quest, the old Games Workshop kind of little intro drug one there. I loved it. I remember me and my dad playing it for quite a few years and that. And from there, we kind of got the advanced Hero Quest, and I started to work out, there's a bit more to this than first seed. And then obviously I went to the GW shops like a lot of us do, and kind of went from there really. I picked up fantasy, very hobbyist to start with, and then 40k, and a very hobbyist approach really to things and just getting the grasp of the world. But I just kind of loved the whole feeling of it all, and I kind of dipped in and out for quite a few years. It never went away. It's one of those things that is always there,
Mm-hmm. So between the two of you, you actually have the 95% of the gamers out there, their origin story covered.
Pretty much.
Seems to be either D&D or Games Workshop. Usually seems to be the gateway drug of choice. And now, what are you up to now, Loxam?
So I kind of went to university and then did basically digital 3D design. So I kind of learned all my design concepts and how to design systems and games, etc. And my whole dream was to become sort of a game designer. It's kind of how me and Matt started talking as well. But then after I finished my degree, a teaching course come up. And it was kind of, I've always had an interest in teaching people and showing people how things work. And so I did that, and I went into teaching for about 9 years. So it's, I'm
nice.
just literally coming out of teaching now to Guild Ball full time. So it's
well, congratulations. From a fellow teacher, congratulations on that escape.
Yeah. It's going to be a different change, but I'm massively looking forward to it. So
there's a common thread to that because Russ is the guy who does most of our, not you, Russ, the other Russ, does most of our sculpting. Guys behind Clockwork Goblin, and he was a teacher, and he also gave up a profession that he loved to sculpt full time. So
nice.
Something tells me that sculpting full time is probably at least as fulfilling.
It would appear so.
Excellent.
But that is great. That's awesome. And so. So did you guys meet for the first time like across a gaming table, or was it working in the game design through Twitter? Of course it was.
Literally.
How could it not have been?
At the time, I've got quite a high competitive background in War Machine. I've done quite well.
That is what I've heard.
Yeah, so it's I kind of at the time I was the number one Crix player in the UK, the hardcore champion. No bragging there, but
nice.
I was doing all right.
This is the whole point of establishing the cred.
That's awesome.
We have a lot of War Machine players listening to us right now from around the world. Lox, now is your chance to establish your primacy.
Right. I was there just mostly second behind Jamie P, the legend that he is in the War Machine community. But I was in that kind of ilk, and Matt kind of messaged me on Twitter and just asked some advice about how to play Crix and how they work and stuff like that, and what lists I was using. I think I was using eScout at the time. So I kind of give back and forth with Matt. We got talking. I saw his Twitter profile. It said Ninja Theory, and obviously with my background in digital 3D design and game design, I was like, this is really interesting because I was a big gamer as well. So we got chatting from there, really.
Wow. Oh, very cool.
So you met over the dead bodies of the Signarites and Fedorans.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right.
Nice.
And so you guys got together. You've been bring us now as a team. So now we brought you together. We've established your geek cred quite clearly. Bring us to where this Twitter from. What's the path? Twitter to Guild Ball. How do we trace that line?
So we set up a website that we called Steamforged.com, which was a War Machine fan site, effectively.
Wow.
We looked to just produce regular content, so we looked to get an article or two up every day or so. Rich focusing much more on the tactical stuff. That was, as a competitive player, that's totally within his strengths. And I'm a competitive painter, so I would bring an awful lot of hobby stuff to the site, and we had a few other contributors, and that ran for a period of time, largely up until the point where we started to fall out of love with War Machine a little bit, and we started to look at what else can we do together, because Rich and I recognised that we actually have a brilliant observation of the world from two different angles that actually is much stronger than the individual viewpoints. So I definitely am much more interested in the flair and the flavour and the creative direction, and Rich with his deep understanding of mechanics and how things hang together. We literally just said, well, why don't we make a game? Like, we both want to make games. We both enjoy making games. So we've brainstormed a whole bunch of ideas, and I've throughout my life had an ideas book that I carry around with me. And the ideas book changes over the years as it fills up with, with different stuff. But we ended up with 4 or 5 like really solid ideas for games that we wanted to make, but one stood out for us as a really great candidate for our first game that we're going to make together and prove whether we can prove the pipeline, prove to ourselves that we can do it, prove that we, to other people that, what we think makes a good game actually is a great game. And so that's when we really started looking at using and leveraging Kickstarter to provide us with that initial cash injection that we needed to get the thing started. I mean, we rather naively, we went into Kickstarter to use it for the purpose for which it was intended, which was to give fledgling companies the opportunity. I'm being slightly tongue-in-cheek. We actually have quite firm philosophical views on how Kickstarter should be used and how it should not be used. But we got the cash injection that we needed to get ourselves off and running, and from there we've managed to set up Steamforged. Reimagined it as an actual games development studio stroke company now.
I was wondering about the name, so that's a very interesting callback to the name. Also,
it's funny, and it's just neat how it's just double meaning now for you guys, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: so you said you had some ideas, and so you went with Guild Ball, but like, what was the I got to ask, because I think the whole, the concept of Guild Ball is really fascinating, and you can tell. I mean, when I was looking through the book, it's laid out. There's obviously there's a stable of other sports games out there, and we'll talk about those, I'm sure, in terms of what makes Guild Ball different. But this one definitely feels like it is a miniature game through and through.
We actually got in it. We had a huge fight. You guys will appreciate this because you're English. We are lately our gaming night.
Fighting.
Drinking and fighting at the same time
in a pub. So it's
in a pub.
All works well.
That's
right.
That's where I'm headed.
Yes, you are 100% right.
Our local gaming lately has sort of moved from a local game shop into a local pub that has a big back room with a bar, with a full service bar and everything. And they've sort of welcomed our group in. And so which is an interesting new dynamic because a lot of these guys drink a lot more than I thought they did. And so we got into a huge fight last night over, and it was 2 different tables. I was playing at one table with my friend Dave, and our friends Will and Adam were playing at another table that were side by side. And it was very funny because there was no more room. The lighting is a little iffy because it's a pub. And so there's islands of light throughout, and they'd already been claimed by the time we got there. So I was like, oh, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? And Adam just put that table like right in the middle of the door. It's like, there's some light here. So we had 2 Guild Ball games going. And you could see, like, the owner comes in. The owner's very interested in what we're doing, and he's very nice and accepting. But he's always kind of like, "Wow, what are you guys doing? What's that there?" He came in and he saw my pitch that I made, that I tweeted out. That looks basically, it's like the GW static grass mat with all the lines sprayed on it and everything. And you could tell that it was kind of like a football soccer-ish game. And so it went from, oh, you guys are kind of in oh my God, what's that? So that was cool. So nobody asked us to move. And then we got into this big giant fight over whether it was a sports game that played like a miniature game or a miniature game that had sports like goals. And it was it was a very intriguing fight that would, and it went on all night long. And I constantly was, because people would come in and Adam was like, no, this is not a sports game. This is a miniatures combat game, and your motivation is trying to score, but and I would be like, no, it is not. It's a sports game. So we got in these big giant fights. So anyway, I just rambled on. Good. Yeah. What? I don't know. I don't even know what we're talking about. So,
so the designer of me is sitting there feeling rather smug because we wanted to pitch it in exactly that middle ground. And there are the Genesis story, and you've probably heard this before because I've told bunch of people, but we were sitting at a War Machine convention, and at that time we were playing a huge amount of Blood Bowl on Steam. We had our own little tournaments going, and I really enjoy painting Blood Bowl minis, and I was actually painting the Dwarf team at the time. And I kind of just in my head just had one of those epiphanies where you're just like, well, why can't you play Blood Bowl like on a War Machine table? That would be cool, right? And then that was an idea that went straight into the book. And Rich and I looked at each other and we went, yeah, we could definitely do that. So it's basically, that was the elevator pitch. Blood Bowl played on a War Machine table. and we literally went from there. So, you know, you've got Blood Bowl, which is a sports game, and you've got War Machine, which is a miniatures game, and we look to fuse the two things together. And with the benefit of hindsight, looking at all the other ideas that we're working towards in the coming years, there's definitely this fusion feel that goes on where, and this is me going to slightly evangelize in terms of product ownership and management of products, is, you know, I do get a little bit tired with of kind of derivative stuff that really is just the same thing reimagined in the same way again and again, and you just think that there's so many opportunities creatively for games and stories to be told, and you know, and way we pull things together, that there is still room to invent new stuff, and that space actually is the gaps between accepted genres or accepted gaming styles. So we definitely try and blur the lines. You know, for example, take a mass combat game like Epic. Could you fit that onto a small board that you played in the back of a car?
Right.
That would be the kind of thought process that we would go through to try and see how you could find a new angle on something.
Right. So, awesome. So how did you choose the, so that explained, and that's great, because I have a lot of other questions later when we get into this, some of the mechanic choices and stuff on, but I love that the fundamental thing was, hey, we're going to play a Blood Bowl type game, because there's so many sports games that are based on boards and grids, you know, or hexes, or, you know, pick your flavor, but they're essentially board games, right? That happen to have miniatures. But you've gone the route of, no, this is going to be like a miniature game on a miniature surface with no markings, and use tape measures and that, which is great. But let me ask you the next big question, which is the universe, and the world is so well developed. Again, for a sports game, most of them rely on another universe or have a very light theme, and you have a very deep and meaty theme, and it's also pretty unique where you have these various guilds going at it. How did that idea sort of come to fruition?
Sorry, Rich will get to talk in a minute, but this is all my, so the way we
sorry, Rich.
The division of labour is that I focus on like the core engine and the world building and the models and the visual look and feel of the game, and Rich does the much more important job of making sure the characters all work together and how they actually play. So I guess we'll talk about it.
Let me ask you this: so did Rich get any say in the world, or are you like, nope, we're going to build all this stuff and you got to just figure out the rules?
I was a stroppy prima donna and insisted on my weight all the time.
I think a lot of it, like, you know, Matt does deal with the world now, but I think even with the rules, and, you know, me and Matt have a working relationship where we'll kind of, the big overall pictures, it'll kind of like, right, we want to do, I don't know, the fisherman team, like, so Matt will propose the idea to me, and it's kind of, we know between each other if an idea hits, you know, and we kind of knock it back and forth, and then I'll kind of let Matt just take it and run with it, and the same with the rules, you know, we'll have a knock back and forth on where we should be and what we want these characters to feel like, and then he'll just let me run with it. And it's kind of how it worked, really, and it's a strange balance to get to, but it's took quite a few years to do it, but we're definitely in a good place with that.
Well, however you got there, it's working.
Yeah, and to answer your question about, so the thing that I feel, there's lots of things I feel passionate about, and they all kind of encompass in this thing, and I'm trying to squeeze them all into one sentence, and I'm going to fail miserably, but
it'll be fun to watch.
I mean, well, yeah, I guess I love character-driven narrative, and I do find an awful lot in wargaming that it's very, it's just action-orientated, like, and it's trying to reflect the action that you could do in the game, you know, and it's a bit like reading the notes from like a D&D group's kind of play session rather than an actual writer who understands character development and character arcs and you know, maturing of characters as they go along. So I knew that we wanted to make this a character-driven game, which is why we've made every player a unique player rather than, you know, a lineman or a blitzer or you know, the soccer equivalent of those, you know, a striker or a defender. They're actually named characters, and with that gives us the opportunity to really develop them as characters and give them personalities, and actually then satisfy my writing itch to write some cool stories in a cool world. And then the other thing that this perhaps comes more from like video games development, when we're defining characters or developing characters for a game, the silhouette is one of the most important terms when it's coming, take a really common thing like Bart Simpson. Everyone knows Bart Simpson. If I just drew the outline, you would know exactly who it is.
Well, I noticed that immediately in the rulebook. So when I was looking through the rulebook, I was immediately reminded the rulebook style, while the layout and the presentation feels like a miniature game, the rulebook style and the way you did the profile shots of the teams totally reminds me of the art concept books you get for all video games, right? It's like, here's an art book for Assassin's Creed, and here's how they did all the characters, and almost all of them, as you mentioned, there's like profile shots everywhere. Or it's like, so you really can see that a lot of your video game roots came into some of this.
That's I find that kind of awesome to hear. That's accidental, but you're not the first person who's mentioned that. And I guess, I've had a hand in several strategy guides, so I guess that just rubbed off on me in terms of, layout design and everything. But yeah, so then the big thing that really, I take kind of visual cues from an awful lot of things, and the opening scene in Gangs of New York stood out for me massively and has done ever since I saw it. And I loved that feel where the two rival gangs made up of multiple smaller gangs, each with their own visual identity and yet part of the whole, really just stood out for me. And I'm like, man, you can make a game out of that. What if the teams look like that? You're this right. Gritty kind of, they've painted stripes on their own jerseys to kind of make sure that they're in with a gang. And then the world just started to kind of grow from there. It's like, well, why would you have these gangs? What would give them a bit of visual flair? And being a huge Terry Pratchett fan, and I've always enjoyed those stories that talked about the different guilds and their interactions. The concept of Guild Ball then started to kind of form shape. Well, what if the teams are actually sponsored by guilds, and they actually look like, or maybe they're made up of people who are just fishermen. And then it matured into and now they're professional athletes sponsored by the guilds, and this gives us like a Machiavellian level for us to play with, like big plots going on, big stuff happening behind the scenes, right, and creating that air of mystery. So the world really grew in layers from that very first concept.
So I got one more question for you, Matt, and then Rich, we're going to jump into the rules, so I think you're going to get a chance to talk.
Oh, good.
So when we mentioned to some of our patrons over on Patreon, we're going to talk to you guys, and we said, what would you ask them? And, of course, a lot of folks haven't had a chance to get a hold of it yet because it's still just getting out there. And one of them said, well, why are you allowing weapons in a sports game? And, of course, my response is, because it's cool, duh.
Why would you not?
Why would you not? But obviously that's probably pretty big decision, or maybe it wasn't. But what were your guys' thoughts on that as you started this? Was it immediately right off the bat, oh, yes, there shall be weapons, or was there a debate about that?
So there's a cynical answer, which is true, and then there is the flair answer, which is also true, and it's cool, right? It's
absolutely,
and it makes it different. And this is one of the things that we knew that we would be like referred to in the same breath as, well, it's just Blood Bowl, but different. It's just Dread Ball, or it's just Chaos Ball, and so we were looking for visual identifiers that would make the game feel different and give its own unique identity. And the cynical answer, which is also true, is, and this comes from me playing, and Rich playing a lot of Malifaux, in which proxy model is actually quite an accepted thing. Mm-hmm. And we knew that if we came up with a cool miniatures line that could be used for other stuff, then perhaps we'd be able to sell models for other game systems, because people like the look of our models, and we're hoping to get that kind of cross-pollination going on as a result of that. So that's a little bit businessy, cynically, but we're trying to be clever. We're trying to, position it as this game is always positioned as an accentuation to your existing gaming. It's a simple, right, small model count game, fast to pick up, got a huge amount of depth if you want to spend time with it. Or not. It's super casual if you just want to play and kick a ball around a field. So that was pretty much the idea behind it.
That's a much more interesting answer than I was.
That was great, and I think it's also very clever. But it's cool. In the middle, the models do in fact rock. So I don't.
The models
doubt.
are beautiful and would fit in perfectly with Malifaux, theme wise and look wise,
and many other miniature games as well. So I think you're going to find they will do well for you. I'm sure you're already finding that. All right, on to the rules. Let's start talking about rules because I love to talk about rules.
Yes, you do.
So, Rich, I guess he's go to you first, but of course, feel free to jump in, gentlemen, and tag team this stuff. What's sort of the driving design concept or fundamental mechanic, if you will, or sort of basic idea when you started to think about the rules for this game?
So I think the best way to approach this is to kind of explain how me and Matt work on rules. So the way it layers is that Matt kind of comes up with the big concepts. Because of his hobby background, he'll come up with like the dice mechanic and say, I want it to work like this, and then we kind of the simplistic approach he takes, etc., etc. I'm sure in a minute when I pass over to him, he will explain you about the dice mechanic because it's his favorite little story.
Rich has heard this story about 100 times now.
But he'll do the kind of big overall kind of technically the low level in gaming, the things you take for granted when you play in the game. And then from there, I'll kind of come in and then add the layers and the pillars in. And then when we have these kind of different approaches, that's when you get this game that, takes that 10 minutes to learn. But then when you actually get into it, after, turn 2, you start to realize, I could have done this, this and this. And, and the layers start to kind of appear to you. And that's mainly my approach. But the fundamentals, it was about simplifying what was already out there and looking at systems and thinking why is there so many steps? And I'm sure Matt, as I said, will regale you now with the dice. Brace yourself for this one. But yeah, go on, Matt. Go for the dice.
All right, so I can feel him sighing at me across the internet at the moment, and now he's like, I don't know, just switched off and not listening. So
there we go.
A lot of this comes down to, and people have done huge studies into trying to define or source what makes things fun. And one of my favorite philosophies is it's the concept of choice. And a really great example is that if you're playing a video game and you're walking down a corridor and there are no turnings and you get to the end and that's it, you've won the game. That's kind of not a really fun experience. Whereas if you're walking down a corridor and there's 2 doors and one's red and one's blue, and then suddenly you have to make a choice and you remember that there was a hint that the red one was danger and the blue one was a good idea, but you don't quite know whether that guy was lying to you, and you open the wrong door, you die, open the right door and you win. That's actually infinitely more fun than walking down just a straight corridor. So the concept of presenting players with choices and options, for me, is the very fundamentals of what makes something fun. And the important thing with when you present choices, and that second example I gave you, the reason why that is also not quite a fun experience is because you're not able to judge the likely outcome of your actions. If you're actually able to do that ahead of time and then see if you were right, that actually is the reward point. So, give someone a set of choices and allow them to understand what the impact or repercussions of their choices might be, and then deliver the results, and then they can see whether they were right or wrong. Then they're having fun. So we took the dice mechanic, and one of the things that I found, sorry, just to rewind just a little bit. So the dice mechanic, I knew that we wanted to have a really simple system that opened up to multiple choices. And you can't have a complex dice system and then a complex amount of choices, otherwise the game will get bogged down. So it was essential that the actual resolution was fast, and then you then spent your time, for each transaction, you spent your time thinking about, well, what can I do with it? So dice mechanic, we looked at other game systems, and we recognize that there's a huge amount of transactions that happen, and they're both computational, social. Let's take War Machine, for example, right? We all know War Machine. You need to basically roll 2 dice and add them to something. So that's one set of maths. You need to find out what your opponent's defense is. You need to then match what you rolled against their defense. This is another social interaction, then a bit of maths to make sure you've exceeded their defense. Then you need, once assuming you hit, and throw in the added factors of trying to decide whether you want to boost or not. If you do hit, you then need to say, well, what's your armor? And then you work out what your power and strength is. You then roll your 2 dice as another bit of maths to add the 2 dice together, then add your power and strength, then deduct their armor, then give them their net hits. Then you need to work out what column to do the damage to. And all of this, actually, when you add it up, is around about 12 transactions. And they're all tiny micro transactions. Mm-hmm. But in the heat of battle, I actually found I really enjoy playing hardcore format, and I found that I really struggled adding 2 dice together, like when I was on the clock. And so we looked at ways of removing those computational steps and simplifying as much as we could. So, interestingly, I wrote about, I don't know, a 2 or 3 page kind of white paper in inverted commas, like theorizing about all these transactions and computational states and how we ended up with the dice mechanic that we did, which was simply a dice pool. And that was the first forum comment from a guy who kind of went, well, he's just banged on for about 3 pages, and it's just a dice pool. It's more than a dice pool. What's wrong with you? Look at the genius
that was me under a pseudo account.
Yeah, probably. Wouldn't surprise me.
Watch me really get upset.
Yeah. So the idea is there's no maths, right? You don't add any maths. You don't have to add any dice together. You assemble a dice pool. You roll the dice. Any dice that exceed your opponent's defense. So there are defenses a bit like an armor save from Warhammer. So if a 3+ armor defense is easier to hit than a 6+ defense. Right. So any dice that's a hit, you just drag them to one side. You're not adding anything up. You're literally just pulling them to one side, and then you deduct armor from your net hit. So if they've got armor 1 or armor 2, you just take 1 or 2 dice away, and then you just count. How many dice have I got left? I've got 5. Therefore, I've got 5 hits. Now what can I do with it? And then that leads into the playbook that we designed that gives you a huge amount of options to play with from those 5 hits. But whatever you do, you're doing this same mechanic over and over, which is just literally generating a number of net hits.
Very cool. So basically you roll the dice in and the choices come from there, but what's great about it is the dice you roll, that process is extremely simple and fast.
Yes.
Yeah,
nice.
Yep.
That's
nice.
Now, one of the main points of the game are the playbooks, and I see that's a little bit later down on the bullet points. But I'm going to jump into it now. I'm just going to do it.
Fair enough.
So we're going to bounce around a little bit because that just reminded me of the playbooks. The playbook for the listeners is basically you've got your total number of hits, and then that's going to interact with this playbook, which gives you options, and every hit unlocks another couple of options that you can choose. And some of them are very straightforward, tactical damage. Some of them are very strategic. Move the other guy, move yourself. Very interesting difference in terminology between American football and European football is the word tackle. So tackle for you guys means what?
You take the ball.
Taking the ball, right? So so every time I get a tackle, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to totally take a ball away that you don't have. But anyway, so tackle means steal the ball, and knockdown, which would be more along lines. So all of those different things are in there. How did you come up with this concept? And then, of course, there's 2 different options because you might wrap around. And where did the concept of this playbook? And then you can also, there's other times you can do the plays. It's very interesting.
To be clear, every character's got their own playbook.
And every character has their own playbook. So this isn't like
one standard playbook list you look at. It's like, no, the playbooks are different for every person.
Yeah, and when you're looking, this is another thing that came up last night. When you're looking at the stats, like normally, like if you're playing 40K, you look at that stat line, you're like, yep, okay, cool, I know that guy pretty much hands down. These Guild Ball models, these players, the meat and bones of who they are in their playbook, and all these different cool options and combos that they're going to be able, and who are they going to buff and who are they going to, tear down. And so it all comes from this playbook concept of these circles these columns and the combat. And so how did that fascinates me, because I've never seen anything like that before.
That's super innovative mechanic, people.
Super innovative mechanic.
Innovative, and now a small dream has come true.
Super
innovative mechanic.
There it is, right there.
So Oh, that makes me so happy. I have been listening to you guys since like episode 4 or something.
Oh, it's very kind.
And like, that's super cool. And the playbook came from this, again, going back to that concept of choices, but it's also a mechanic that we need as designers. We need mechanics that we call levers that enable us to manipulate the game to create ways of playing the game. And one of the things that we are hugely passionate about, largely fueled by our slight dismay at the homogenization of War Machine lists, that we want each team to have a very, very unique feel and play style. And we needed something that allowed us to reinforce the gameplay style that each team exemplifies. So the playbook mechanic allowed us to do that, especially when you lay it in the momentum, which I guess we'll talk about in a wee while. But rewarding players for the kinds of things that your team is good at without necessarily punishing them for doing the things that they're not so good at. Feeds into another core design pillar of we don't. Rock, paper, scissors is I feel is really old school now as a gameplay approach, and I find it quite frustrating. It's a negative loop where if you can do something, you do it and you win. If you can't do that, then you lose. And I think you should always have an opportunity, or you should always have options that you can use. Never say never. So all of these kind of thinking, and thoughts and ideas, sort of help to form this concept of when you hit someone, do you just have to do damage? Can you do other stuff as well? And then how do you actually present that to a player in a way that enables them to prejudge their likely outcome of their actions, going back to that fun concept, and also giving them a huge amount of options from a single gateway, which is the dice pool, generating net hits. And so it went through a couple of cycles. We actually had a tech tree from, what's that RTS that we played? Like Age of Empires, Civilization, and all that kind of stuff. We started off with this like tech tree idea that the more hits you got, the further down the tech tree you got, and the more cool stuff you got at the end. And we actually had it at one point that you could cumulatively add up all of the things that you got as you went down the tech tree, which was kind of epic. But when you played, it took forever to kind of work out what you wanted to do. And we knew that actually, whilst awesome, was also, it actually wasn't as fun as saying, well, do you know what? I really need to tackle that ball off that guy. I've got to tackle on my second column. I know what my dice pool is. I know what his defense is. I'm pretty sure I can get 2 net hits. I'm going to go for it. And suddenly you roll like seven net hits. You're like, hold on a second. Now I can wrap around and I can do this as well. Right. That's the explosion of surprise from your actions. So that's kind of where the playbook come from. It's really hard to pinpoint precisely where we went, do you know what? I've had a brilliant idea for a thing called playbook. It literally just grew out of a whole bunch of requirements that we had and a bunch of ideas that we had.
No, I can see that. And you can see the tech tree deep down inside it too, which is cool.
It ties really well into giving, like, as far as, balancing the rules and that as well, like, coming into looking at the Butchers team, these guilds kind of lend themselves to play styles. So when you say Butchers, you think of axes and cleavers and aprons, and you expect them to do damage as a team. And, you talk about the Fishermen, you think about nimble, movement, so you expect them to be moving, and a lot. And I think that the playbooks allowed us to actually build these playbooks. So when you compare a Butchers, member to a Fisherman member, you can see that the Fishermen have got much more dodges and actual movement tricks on their cards and get rewarded for that, whereas the Butchers get rewarded for doing damage to people. And that kind of, to be able to have that for one system, to be able to do both things, as a, designing mechanics wise, just phenomenal to use. Like,
it's really brilliant.
It ties in with another, sorry, there's so many, this is the thing I'm
There's
most
a million
proud of.
pillars.
No, we try and normalize the pillars, but there's so many different ways that they all interlock with each other. And we've, both through hard work and quite a lot of luck, we've hit this wonderful balance where all the elements just kind of work well together. One of the things why I think Guild Ball is such an instant grab when you chat to people is that, the world building is guilds, like mercantile guilds, they sponsor football teams and the teams play professionally. right, okay. And then you can see in their eyes, they get it, right? And then suddenly there's 100 different professions out there. And you could say, well, what about, like, take something really left field, like a lamplighters guild. And they're like, okay, well, they could be like tall, spindly, gaunt, like wearing black. Maybe they've got like face masks on, like gas masks on, that kind of feel to them. Maybe they've got some kind of mechanic where they move between pools of light or something like that. Maybe they can move the ball between pools of light. Maybe they can put lamps up in the playing field. And suddenly this explosion of ideas, but it's that grab that gets people hooked in, and then the playbook gives us the mechanics to actually say, right, now this is how we drive that kind of behavior for that team, and it gives that team its actual gameplay identity as well as a visual identity.
It's very interesting to me because that idea or that goal seems to be universal in miniatures games. Everybody wants to have, every team plays differently or every army plays differently, and it rewards this. But you guys, this is the first game I think I've ever played where it just happens organically that your team is moving to its strengths while at the same time not, like you said, locked into that as its only option, which I thought was a great testament to your design.
Well, hopefully we've laid the groundwork for that to be true in the future. The thing that with the test of time, being completely honest about it, is War Machine started that way. And it's as you add layers on top of it, it's how you expand the game. And this is where Games Workshop, everyone lambasts Games Workshop for constantly reinventing, the codexes and the codex creep and bringing them out one at a time and actually retiring models and bringing out new models. They're actually resetting the baseline each time. They do that as a complete cycle. And it's actually a good way of ensuring that you don't end up with homogenization of lists. So we need to be we've been very mindful of this from the very beginning, that what do we put in place into the DNA of the game that will allow us, as we expand the game out, to ensure that we don't end up with a butcher's team playing exactly like a fisherman team, playing exactly like a mortician's team. So, by the time you've expanded the model range and the options that players have.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool mechanic. I also like, and I don't think we can, it's really hard to explain this without some visual help, but it's really these playbooks are like a matrix of circles, right? So it's really very clever. And not only are the abilities listed in these circles with little icons, but also where they appear on this matrix is also important. So to really kind of evaluate your team and your players and how they're actually going to work in practice is going to take more than a few playthroughs to find the subtleties of the fact that, most of his abilities are kind of to the left, so that means I can use them in this situation better than in these other situations.
That's exactly, in the playtest, the amount of times we agonized over just moving like a knockdown from column 2 to column 3 on a character. It takes a long time to get the balance right of where a character should do something, and what they should access that to. Like Kraken, for example. His knockdown is very early on in his playbook because he's a huge bulking character. You expect him to do that, and it's that balancing act. Whereas someone like Angel doesn't have a knockdown because she's up front, she's doing a strike, etc. And it's getting this balance and where the damage spikes on the models, like how much damage you should have, where they should access dodges. And again, going back to the playtest, like in the playtest, the fishermen were doing too quick dodges, for quite a long time. So they're doing 2-inch dodges off the number 1 playbook. So all of a sudden they could do too far. So how do we balance that down? Well, we can split it into a 1 dodge and a 2 dodge, on the first and second columns, and giving people all these variant options. As you say, it takes a while to learn the characters, but you can kind of see, where we're kind of, I think Matt calls it cookie crumb, putting a crumb. Explain your crumb mechanism. There's another one he does all the time. This is the crumb one. We'll go for the crumb one.
Which one's this one? It's early in the morning.
This is the crumb one from actual game design, where you kind of put a little layer of crumbs, and the players then follow them crumbs, and then
it sounds delicious as a theory.
It's great.
This sounds like software design too. So I'll try to.
That's the one. Yeah.
So what happens is you start off and you think you have good function. Apple's really good at this too, right? So you start off using a product and say, "Oh, this is nice. Look at this lovely watch that tells time. This is pretty cool. Oh, wait, if I push my finger down a little harder, all of a sudden I can change the face. I didn't discover that till the second day I was using this strange watch. And all of a sudden there's another breadcrumb. So it sounds like there's levels in this game as well, whereas the more you play the game, the more you'll find depth. And so that's what I like about this is by looking through the book and reading it and seeing the fluff, and because you've tied it to, as you guys mentioned before, these very iconic guilds, and I go, well, clearly the fishermen are going to, based on how they're drawn and how they look, they're going to be very pokey and dodgy, and clearly the butchers are going to be a little more sure-footed and have tougher to hurt because these giant aprons and big blades, and so I see how they're going to play, I think, and I get some rough ideas based on the rules and the icons and their thing, but I'm not going to really understand all the subtleties until 1 or 2 or 3 plays, and so I think that's really great because it's going to keep me coming back, keep the replayability going, and then, of course, as my opponent figures his side out, he's going to figure out other ways to counteract my stuff, and so it's going to be a game that the more you play it, the more you get from it.
Exactly. And it builds up through there, and I think what people are finding, the more they play the game, is that they can still explore, like we said before, like Craig said, about, the butchers, you can play football with the butchers, but, right. We kind of aim people towards the damage style, so we kind of give the options to each of the guilds. And then, we've got the Union, which can be swapped into these teams as well, like Mercenaries of the World, essentially. Yep. And they can give you other options. They can give you access to our options and bring some of the, you can fine-tune. I think one important point we haven't said about the game at the moment is that there is no points. I mean, there's a big thing about the Age of Sigmar at the moment. There's no points in there that at all.
That's a huge thing, yeah.
Yeah, and people have been I've seen quite a few messages like, how can that work? And then people have been going, well, Guild Ball has no points and that works. And it's kind of,
we were there first. We
were there first. Like, it was kind of cool.
Who else is there now?
It's the new Warhammer.
The new Warhammer has no points. Really?
No points currently, and people are going kind of spare about how can a system work without points. And me and Matt have, we don't need points for our game because the balance is there. And every player doesn't give you a power level. What it gives you is an option. How you want to play. Yeah. And I think that's really important.
And you can't play with all big heavy guys.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
But you can.
You can.
You can if you want to, but then you don't have the options need.
Right.
That's it's very cool.
This is the balance. It's balance in the gamer's head that because you've only got 6 choices, you actually have to sacrifice something to put something else in. Mm-hmm. That's the balance. Well, I want to take Boiler out because I need to put, Rage in, but I don't want to lose Boiler because he gives me this element to my game plan. So now I have to change my game plan to fit the personnel I got on the team.
There's no way to spam a bunch of cheap guys and see how that works for you, or go with all heavies because you got 6 guys, and unfortunately the heavies don't do what the light guys can do, and vice versa. Right?
Exactly. It's options, rather than power.
I think it's great. What's really interesting about it is it's because a lot of the differences in the models are in the layers and behind a whole trail of breadcrumbs you got to play a lot to figure out. You won't maybe truly know all that until you play multiple times. Which I think is great. I think that's really adds a lot of depth to the game. I want to talk about one other mechanic I think is really cool and reminds you it's a sports game, or at least it's got elements of a sports game, and it's the concept of momentum. So momentum makes a lot of sense if you ever watch sports because the announcers talk about it all the time, right? Teams getting hammered, haven't scored yet. It's been a whole period or a quarter or name your favorite sports ball, and it's going along, and all of a sudden, I did that for Craig, and then all of a sudden, finally, a major player gets injured or the other team finally scores, even though they're down by 20 points. The announcers say, well, they've scored now. That's going to change the momentum of the whole game, right?
Yep.
Was that the driver for this? You want to, because not a lot of sports games have this built into it. How were you guys thinking about momentum and how did you implement it in the game?
I think when we started on it, it was definitely when we were playing the game that we noticed that just with the influence system itself, it was kind of predictable. And we definitely didn't want to bring random elements into the game. That's something we were quite against. But we needed something that ebbed and flowed throughout the game. And we mentioned this momentum system. It's something that could build up and go down. And just as you said then, which is that as teams do something good, you want to reward the player. And Matt's was quite adamant about kind of enhancing the positive play experience that people have. Matt?
Yes. So well, I'm gonna push my glasses up my nose a little bit and suck my teeth and kind of go a little bit dry gamer design-y.
Nice.
Momentum's like a core currency for our engine to work, and it's the interaction between the influence which every player brings and how you convert it into momentum, and at what time you convert it into momentum throughout your turn. And the thing that I think is very appealing is that at different stages in the turn, momentum has a different value to you, and you need to judge throughout constantly how the game's playing out on the tabletop, what you intend to do, and how you're going to fuel that with the momentum that you're building up. And so momentum is used to do cool stuff. It's used to kind of, give you bonuses to rolls. It's used to enable you to have a shot on goal. It's used to protect yourself when someone attacks you. It's used to fuel kind of special abilities. And so you're kind of looking at the early part of a turn I need to get a couple of momentum on the board because that gives me options that I can then explore through the mid part of the turn. Now, bearing in mind we're only talking about 12 activations as well, so the turn's relatively a short space. So trying to identify where these different layers are is the difference between a casual player and a really hardcore competitive player. The momentum also gives you that delicious choice. Do I spend it? Do I hoard it? Mm-hmm. If you hoard it, it gives you a boost because you've built up momentum, you built up speed, you built up this flow in the game. That translates to an advantage into the rolling for initiative in the next turn. Mm-hmm. However, we want to give you as many tempting choices of spending it throughout the turn to make that an agony of choice. Do I keep it or do I spend it? I really need to do this thing, but I have to win initiative. Otherwise, I'm going to lose that guy who's kind of exposed. So it's really the oil in our engine. And like you say, like with a sports game, any sports game is all about building up momentum. You watch a soccer game, and as an Arsenal fan, like we exemplify this. It's moving, and Liverpool did this in the 80s and 90s when they were dominant. And it's all about moving the ball, and you're just passing the ball backwards and forwards, like Barcelona, tiki-taka football, and the ball's moving left to right and back and forth, and it's just literally building this kind of X factor, this momentum just seems to feel that generating you as an spectator. You can see it happening in front of your eyes, and the other team's getting pulled out of position, and your team's getting into the right positions, and then suddenly, bang! Like the ball moves fast, gets to Messi, and he scores a goal, right? And it's that kind of feeling that we wanted to create with it.
That's awesome. So, Craig, you got the chance to play with the momentum. What do you think of it in action?
I have to say, like that. One of the things you're always, or at least I am always looking for in a miniature game is those cinematic moments that kind of like something happens or something clicks in the game and you're like, oh my God, I can see that happening. And I have to say that Guild Ball comes very close to the best game I've ever played for generating those moments. And a lot of them revolve around the momentum because when you first of all, just imagining the pass, that's very cool. And just like you guys said, Matt, I think said the, passing and how that gins up the crowd. But then when you look at your playbook and you've got like, what we didn't mention when we're talking about the playbooks, gives you all these options. Are you pushing? Are you pulling? Are you dodging? Are you doing damage? Are you doing your cool little personal abilities? Layered in underneath that is some of those options give you momentum. So it's this cool thing where, oh yeah, that guy tackles, but when he tackles, he also adds momentum, and you can just picture he's doing it in such a cool way. Like he comes in, he slide tackles, he pops up, he's got the ball, and you're like, oh my God. And those moments are because of momentum and because it becomes not just like, oh yeah, that was a cool thing, but it's actually fueling the game, as you said. It just adds that much more adrenaline to those moments of the game where you're like, not only was that cool, but it got me a momentum point, or it got me 2 momentum points. And it just, it in your head, at least what it was doing for all 4 of us that were playing, it fuels your imagination for like what the reaction is and how cool that move must have been that they got momentum for it. So I thought it was awesome. There's so many options. And it was our first playthrough, so obviously you're going to miss some stuff. There were a lot of people getting knocked down, and we had totally missed the part where you can spend a momentum point to get rid of all conditions, including knockdown, which would have been huge. And I don't think anybody would have been collecting as much momentum as they did. But it's awesome to watch the other guy agonize over, oh, do I really want to do a counterattack? Or I really want to keep this ball. I can pump up my defense, but it's going to cost me momentum. So it's very cool, and it so fits in with the theme and the concept of the game where the more ginned up your crowd is, the more excited your team is, the better they're going to play. You know, they're going to squeeze out that last little bit of effort or dig that last little bit deeper, and they're going to be able to do cool things. I swear, I mean, the name that keeps popping up in my head is Ross Watson, which, you know, when he's talking about role playing and he says never say no, that's like this game. This game, it's just all about options, and it's all about, and momentum is just another aspect of that, of unlocking all these options for you as you go. And I was getting my butt kicked. In fact, Dave kept making fun of me, like, your fans must love watching you get your butt kicked, because my momentum was always high, but I was always like behind the 8 ball.
Well, everyone loves an underdog, right?
Yes,
Right,
exactly. And so it's not like it. To me, a lot of these games that have these different forms of resources, you're like, oh, you know, I don't have as much as the other guy. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Momentum is not hard to get. You know, it generates. You're passing, you get it. You're using your playbook, you get it. When I first read the rule book 3 times before I played, and it still made mistakes, but that's all on me. I was like, wow, okay, so you really need to attack to get the momentum, and that's not the case. There's like 4 different ways you can get momentum, and it was just, for instance, the playbook, taking out an enemy, passing successfully, or scoring a goal. So can you tell I've got a cheat sheet in front of me? So yeah, the concept of the momentum, the mechanic of momentum in the game, to me is it's essential. It's like you said, it's the oil in the whole engine of the game. I thought it was great, and I thought it worked beautifully. I thought I could see it doing mechanics wise what it was supposed to do, but at the same time, it was serving the storyline of the game so well that it was almost like that aspect of it, that mechanical aspect of it, was in the background. And
this is like, you know, so Rich was kind of talking about the cookie crumb. I mean, it's momentum, and spending momentum is also like a psychological trigger point for a player to know it's a signification that something cool is about to happen when you're spending momentum. And, you know, it does lend yourself to these like cinematic moments. And I was down my gaming club a couple of weeks ago, and one of the guys down there who's going to be a pundit for us, he was playing a game with his Masons, and he's kind of sitting there going, oh, I don't really know what to do. And I won't kind of boring gamer stories, you know, you have to see the table, but basically built up this, like I said, well, you got Flint, man. He can do anything he wants. He's going, yeah, but he hasn't got the ball. I'm like, it's Flint. And he's like, oh yeah. So he basically sprinted Flint forward. He tackled the ball, generated a momentum from that. He then passed the ball to a guy who was near the goal. And then basically paid to have a snapshot. So this is all, you know, an out of activation, like really hard, like volleying the ball against the goal. And it's significantly more difficult to do. And he's like, well, I need to do this. And he goes, I made the tackle. And he's like, right now I need to do the pass, but it's really difficult because I've got the guy who I've just tackled is still there. But, oh yeah, I've made the pass. And he's built this momentum up. And like in his voice, he's building the momentum up. And his opponent's excited and I'm excited. And then he missed the goal. And I'm like, oh, if only that had like gone in. But then the feverish glint in his eyes, like, next time it will go in. And I'm like, yes, that is it. It's like, you know, it's totally like you hit that sweet shot in golf. You then want it makes you go back over and over because just for that one sweet moment.
I mean, that's totally like a sporting event, right? 'Cause you're watching and like, oh, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is the other weird thing. I don't know if this is because it is a sports game, but we've started to get a bit of a tournament scene going on over here in the UK because, you know, we're obviously squished together on a tiny little island. We're only, you know, like 2 or 3 hours away from anyone in the entire country. And so we've got a bunch of tournaments going off. And I was following one tournament on Twitter, and it was actually interesting that people were posting the scores up, and it was almost like a running commentary was going. I was like, oh my God, the Morticians are closing in on the goal. And then you're kind of waiting for the next tweet. It's like, and they score, yay! You know, like, really good. It's like really exciting.
That's awesome. So, well, let me ask you, there's a couple other things. I do want to move on to the teams. I want to talk about all the different guys because it's just so awesome. But anyway, so I want to ask you a couple more mechanic questions here. I think we covered obviously the big boys in the room, which of course is the playbook and the momentum, and of course you talked about the dice worked, which is huge. But there's also combos and plots, and not really related directly, but how do those two work, and what were the thinking behind those mechanics?
So I'm going to answer the plots, and Rich can talk about like the combo layering, because that's the kind of Matrix stuff that he does that my brain just doesn't work around. But the idea of plots is they're our version of scenario play, or that's how they started off. And there's a reason why 90% of war games work better with scenarios, is because it gives you objectives to do other than just killing the other guy. Right. And so what we also wanted to do is layering this narrative feel that the guilds are using the teams as their puppets, like doing behind the scenes deals. And, well, if your team beats my team, then I suppose I'll let you have that contract, that kind of, thing going on. So, they started off with being like incredibly powerful, game swinging kind of events, a bit like gaining a victory point, or a win condition from a scenario like Steamroller, for example. But we found that they evolved into these things that you want to kind of pursue. They're not 100% game changing, but they're definitely significant, and it stopped the game being quite swingy, which we found was quite a negative experience. So they're really nicely balanced now that you want to do them, and if you do, then you get a cool cinematic moment, or you, again, like a little narrative that you can tell after the game. Oh yeah, when you slid in, I used my don't touch the hair, and clearly I just jumped out of the way so you can take the ball off me, that kind of thing. So that's where they ended up. They started off as our scenarios, and they evolved into something that just enhances that kind of core game loop.
That's very cool, and I could see how that lends argument again to, is it a sports game or a miniature game? Because most sports games, you're on the same shaped pitch, doing the same thing every time. So that's cool. So Rich, what's the deal with combos?
So in this game, we wanted to make sure we had a feeling of that you were never sat there as a player and just kind of not watching the game. And because you play games again like War Machine, things like that, and your opponent does the movement of a unit and the shooting, etc., and then the next unit and shooting, and it can kind of for 20 minutes you're kind of watching them just do their thing, and all the combos together and that. And I was famous back in the War Machine days playing, infamous more like playing for the Mark 1 days of Baldur and stuff like that, where you can lock people out, and you set your patterns up, you have your turn movements, and we definitely didn't want people to have an experience in this game where you would kind of have a pattern. You can't just run a guy every time the same place, because it just doesn't happen. So we wanted, we love Malifaux in the way that kind of had the you go I go mentality, and that built into the combo system. So we thought, well, if that happens, I can, say I've got, I don't know, Shark, for instance, I can see the opponent's got the ball down the pitch. I'm thinking, right, so I've got a model, on the wing, something like that. I can see the combo here is I can hit from that, generate momentum, I hit again, I can dodge round. Third hit, I can then tackle the ball. And then the fourth one, I can then actually hit out, pass the ball from the hit, making a combination, and get that person then to do a 4-inch dodge down the wing. And this combo mechanic, within a single player's turn, but again, like, coming back to the playbooks now, it allows you to build in, like, multiple angles and levels as a kind of mechanic side. So, any character, I come to design, I can literally have a massive toolbox, and I think, right, so this character is going to be a striker, so he's going to, I want him to be playing off dodges and things like that. Or this guy's going to be a defender-style character, so he's going to, work off damage, and how can he interact with that, and where does the momentum generate from that? And the combos kind of build interaction-wise, just from these characters, and how they play together, basically. I think as well, like, it was interesting at the first tournament, because we just didn't want to make that game where, you sit there for, your hour and a half, and you kind of go, and you go battered 12-0 or whatever, and the opponent was just running rings around you. I think it's very hard, no matter what game you're playing in this, you can lose them games, 12-0, stuff like that. But you'll still be enjoying it, you'll still be generating momentum, you'll still be interacting, just because of the way the actual combos and the mechanics work. You never, as Matt said before, you're never at that place in the game where you just can't do something. And I purposely went to some of the bottom tables in the first official tournament rang, and because I guess said how's it going in that, and going, absolutely love it, like, it's fantastic. I'm getting battered, but I'm enjoying myself, because and I kind of posed the question to him. I said, do you feel like at any point here that you can't do something, or you just lose in for. And he said, no, not at all. Like I'm a general momentum here. It's a closer game than it looks. I managed to play the ball. I managed to still do what I want to do in the turn. He's just playing better than me, So that's awesome. It's a cool thing.
That's great.
My favourite moment from that first tournament was. There was a guy, and the scores were really close. I think they were like 10-10 or something. And one guy had like 15 minutes left on his death clock, and the other guy had like 15 seconds left on his death clock. And you could see him throwing like everyone forward, piling forward, trying to pull out this big play. And he managed to score the goal that won in the game in like the dying seconds of injury time. And he slumped in his chair, and his hands were shaking. And I said, "Are you all right?" He goes, "That was epic." And he goes, "But I am exhausted." He goes, "Why do I have to concentrate for the whole hour and a half? I'm used to sitting back and having a rest every 10 minutes." It's like, no, man, you got to work for this game.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So, and I think there's one other thing I think I want to mention, and I know this is not going to sound like a big deal to miniature gamers, but remember, this is a sports game. Somewhat is this idea that you already talked about plot, so you've got these concepts of scenarios, but you also have. I love this section of the book. It's like, hey, you want train? Throw it on the table. Train's great. Have as much train as you want.
They'll play guild ball anywhere.
Right. Play it in the backyard, middle of the street, around the thing, right in the it's like street ball. Why did you decide that train would be awesome? And what did you think about where the idea behind let's just have train on the table come from?
I think, again, like terrain gives, just that kind of blurred line between the skirmish and the sports, and terrain gives you more options as a designer. Again, it's one, like, Matt harks on about it forever, and I do take the mickey a little bit, but the kind of idea of having these pillars of design, and it's just another pillar. I think if we build enough of these in the place, then when people experience the game, they kind of they can't pinpoint, it's that bit that's making the game good, or it's that bit that's making the game good. It's like, okay, all these together are actually adding up to this great kind of interaction and synergy game. And terrain just helps with that, and I think for a visual way as well, Matt will say, like, if we've had people say, oh, I want to play in a town, I want to make a town board and, have small crumbling walls and stuff, like, and we've give like a very kind of open terrain rule set to allow people to build and to experience the hobby side as well. At the same time, giving a very balanced and flexible rule set for terrain that can easily be played. And, in the competitive side, if you look at the organised play document, we recommend 7 pieces of terrain per table, because it just adds that kind of element. These can be small things from a patch of muddy water. It's going to be rough ground. There could be, a slick, kind of icy kind of area for fast ground.
I like the pigsty example in the book. That was great.
Yeah, exactly. So, we encourage this because, one, it adds depth to the game and adds a few more angles, but two, it actually, creates this world again. The fact that, although it is becoming a professional sport, Guild Ball is still played in, all over the place, and, you will find, bits of crumbling wall and, the odd farmer's gate, etc., just hanging out in the pitch and stuff. So
it's awesome.
It adds into that visual image that people
That's great. Okay, well, all right, so I think we spent the good amount of time. I can talk about mechanics, and even long-time listeners know I can talk about mechanics all day. So
this is like a giant mulling mechanic.
It's with a heavy heart. We must move away from mechanics because if we want to talk about pillars, clearly one of the pillars of a miniature game is great mechanics.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, total fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakelin and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. And our shout-outs are, as always, to our wonderful supporters over at Patreon. Head to patreon.com/the D6 Generation, and you too can support the show. Today is Monday. Tuesday, we leave for Gen Con. So, in just over, looks at the time, 12 hours, we will be on the road from New Hampshire to Indianapolis, Indiana, for the best 4 days in gaming. The kids are super excited. Russ and I are super excited. We're going to make it a 2-day trip there and a 2-day trip back, so we're going to stop and have some fun along the way. The girls are, of course, most stoked to be playing some role-playing games. We've got our character sheets, thanks to Dean, and the kids have been checking everything out, and they are ready, although my little one admits that she's a little nervous because she's going to be playing with some grown-ups. I think she thinks that grown-ups bite, and that if she makes a mistake, she's going to be the only one. But I assured her that that's what doing an RPG is all about. Everyone makes mistakes all the time, and that's half the fun of it. But we're also really looking forward to just the excitement of Gen Con. It was funny. I put my youngest to sleep maybe an hour and a half ago, and she said, "This happens every year." And I said, "What happens every year?" She said, "Every year. It feels like Gen Con's never going to come, and then it's here. It's like that with PAX. Like, the conventions just sneak up on you, Mom. Like, you don't even know that they're coming, and then suddenly there they are." And I thought, she's kind of right. Like, I remember thinking about Gen Con back before kids got out of school. So we're talking like early June, and thinking, oh my God, that's not till the end of July, almost August. I have so much time before I even have to worry about that. And then it was July, and I'm like, I've got like so many other things between now and Gen Con. I don't even have to think about Gen Con. It's so far off. And truly, tonight, when she said it sneaks up on you, it occurred to me, it really does sneak up on you, and I am not ready. Russ, on the other hand, is very ready. I am recording this on a funky microphone, so I probably sound funky. It is one of the fancy new wireless mics that he has gotten to do our play-by mob that we do every year at Gen Con. There is a soundboard and more stuff and cables. It's a little frightening. I'm not sure whether to be confident in his engineering prowess or possibly slightly terrified at the thought of him making all of this work when it comes down to things. But he is ready. He's got boxes of games. I don't know if you checked out the Twitter feed. I'm pretty sure he put up a picture, but we have so many games to bring to give away at Gen Con that we had to go buy those, packing boxes that you get at UPS and fill a bunch of them. And we have friends who we are sharing their trailer, because we don't have enough room in our car to get us, our things, and the games that we're giving away all down to Gen Con at one time. So it is going to be an epic last-minute packing, last-minute getting things together, finishing stuff up at the day jobs, getting clothes cleaned and ready, getting the kids packed, making sure that I have all of our little Gen Con tickets for all of our different things, and our trusty 4-day passes for the girls, which are sitting here right in front of me. And all the goodies and things that we're planning to give away at the convention. So if you are heading to Gen Con, we will see you there. Definitely say hello if you see us. I love saying hi to people and meeting people that listen to the show. So don't think that you're bugging us. Tap us on the shoulder and say hello, because we love to see you guys. So in just 3 days, I will see everybody at Gen Con.
Nice echoey horn. That was a manual echo. We're on the road to Gen Con recording this ad here.
We're on the road to Gen Con. Wait, You know what? You know who has a huge booth at Gen Con?
My favorite booth at Gen Con.
The War Store.
That's right.
Bringing the war to your door for a decade and more.
That's exactly right. And our friends at the War Store are the best places to go to get the best service and prices on your favorite miniature games and other games, too.
It's all about the service
on the internet.
For me, Russ.
It really, really is. And what I love about them, too, is you go to these various conventions, whether it's Gen Con or TempleCon or a bunch of other conventions across the country, and you're going to find a great booth. It's like going into the mecca of miniature war games.
Or if you're in New York State, they've got a brick-and-mortar store.
Yep.
And if you're not anywhere near any of those, of course, there's www.thewarstore.com.
Super easy website to navigate. Pick your favorite miniature genre. You'll find your stuff instantly. All the stuff you need to do your miniature war game, whether it's modeling, terrain, bases, they've got it all.
And if it's a gray area, they're in more than one place.
Right.
So if you're looking for War Machine, for instance, sci-fi, fantasy, steampunk, you can find it in almost any place you could possibly think.
You're looking for the hotness? Let's say you're really excited about the new Halo Fleet Battles game. Who's going to have it at Gen Con? Oh, I think the War Store might.
Not only that, Russ, they're giving away a bunch of free models.
Oh, they are. It's insane. So you want to keep track of the latest hotness too, be sure you follow Vic and all the boys over on the War Store's Twitter feed as well. So check it all out at thewarstore.com.
I'm Rafe Hollywood Granger, and this is the Hollywood Minute.
Welcome to another edition of the Hollywood Minute with Rafe Hollywood Granger. If you want to see what I'm up to, go ahead and follow me over at Twitter. I'm on the D6G Hollywood on the Twitters. All right, so big news is, by the time you hear this, I think it'll be before Gen Con. I'm never really sure of Russ's timing schedule. So not heading out to Gen Con this year. Just taking a break from Gen Con. I have to admit that I'm not really missing it. I will miss seeing all the friends that I see out there. That part I'll miss. And of course hanging with my local crew. That part I'll miss. But I'm not feeling that feeling that maybe when you decide 6 months ago to not go do something and then it's here and you kind of regret it. I'm not feeling that. I'm feeling okay with it. I'm not sure if maybe that means my Gen Con times are over or maybe they're just over for this year. Not really sure. But not really focusing on it that much. I do know that I'm going to try to have a little mini Gen Con over here. Andy's not going this year. Greg Ivany's not going this year. And I think Stino's not going this year. So Greg Ivany and I talked about getting together on Saturday, which we're going to do. Don't know what game we're going to play yet. I'm going to play a nice long game of some sort. Speaking of games, what people got all the rage is Frostgrave. Little miniature game put out by Osprey Games. We picked up the book on Amazon for about $13, and it's a wizard-based skirmish game. Supposed to be pretty light and fluffy. Ian sent out the initial email and got everybody buzzing along. Jeremy Turner was also big into it. As Ian puts it, he calls it, quote, "This is an Ian game, led by a wizard, very fluffy rules, meant to play in a short amount of time." I'm looking forward to it because I like games like that too. I don't mind games with random outcomes. Apparently this is the type of game that technically a one-shot could kill your leader, and I don't mind things like that. I mean, ask me after I've played it, maybe I'll mind, but sounds fun to me. I bought some of the Freeblades miniatures when I was at Adepticon, so I'm thinking about putting a band together for that. For Frostgrave. My other idea is to build a complete mouse-themed army using the Dark Sword miniatures. I have a mouse warrior. The downside to that is the miniatures cost about $10. I mean, the sculpts are beautiful. Don't get me wrong; they're worth $10. But I don't know that I want to plunk $100 to $150 on a game that is not battle tested yet. If our group's going to play it. The other thing that I've been itching for, of course, is playing Star Wars miniatures. The X-Wing. I actually found my Star Wars miniatures when I was cleaning out my closet and gave them to Emmy to play, and she played with them like for action figures. But back to X-Wing. So yeah, Doc sent me a great new battle map. I'm looking forward to playing the game on that. And as a matter of fact, my birthday scooter ride's coming up, and I think the theme of it this year I'm going to do is I normally do RPGs, but that's back when we weren't playing RPGs and everything was miniature and board games. Now the group actually plays a bunch of RPGs, so now I'm thinking of switching the theme a little bit and going over to an RPG mini-themed game like X-Wing, which has a good narrative, like Frostgrave, since everybody's all excited about it, and seeing if Craig can make it over, if he'll want to bust out the gut shot. So that's what I'm thinking about for the 4th annual scooter ride. That'll be happening on, I think it's September 12th. Yep, I've already got all the scooter gangs all locked in. Reminds me I have to talk to Megan Slotchi about what we're going to do for shirts and doodads to commemorate the event. What else we got going on? Oh, we got together with the D&D 5e guys. Let's give them a shout out. You got Dave Farr, you got Stino, you got Andy, you got Greg Ivany, and you got Ian. Rich was missing. So let's see. Ian plays our bard, Ivany plays our monk, Andy plays our fighter, Dave Farr plays a sorcerer, which he's getting into his character a lot more, which is really kind of cool. He's really fleshing it out. And Stino plays our barbarian, and Rich plays our thief, but he wasn't able to make it. This session, I don't want to give any spoilers, was the group was leaving Waterdeep on their way up to Neverwinter, which is the roads being rebuilt after not being built for 100 years. So it covers the group's journey up the road. The other thing that's pretty cool that people are starting to get into is I created a Wraith-like magic item, which I told all of them in the beginning of the game, which is purely voluntary, that they can create a magic item that'll go through 7 different iterations or phases. And the first power is, meant to be a first level power, and then the second power they pick is like a third or fourth level power, things like that. They can create their item. Think of it, pretend that I picked a magic hat, let's say. So like the first power might be something like, gives plus 10% when hiding in shadows or something like that. Now what they can do for the second power is it can be plus 20, then the third power would be plus 30, then the fourth power would be plus 40 or something like that, all the way up to, maybe complete invisibility when in shadows or something. So, or you could say, the magic hat, it's plus 10 hiding in shadows, and then the next ability is maybe it has a pocket and it's like a bag of holding and it can hold a certain amount of items, and then maybe the next ability is it has a spell slot, or maybe the next ability is it grants a bonus to hit. Whatever, you can like go wide and generic with your abilities just as much as deep, and the way to do that is you just write up the narrative to me, and sort of the player character gets to pick the narrative of their own magic item. So Dave Farr just sent me in his, and I'm really looking forward to that. So far, Greg Ivanese is the only other weapon. No, I take that back. Rich has a cape of shadows too, a cloak of shadows. But Greg Ivanese is really cool. It's a fey blade. It's a blade that actually has a personality to it. And one of its traits is it's jealous. And so when Greg owns this weapon, he can't own any other magic item. But it's pretty powerful. It's a fey magic blade, and Greg's working through his magic powers. Right now it's plus 1 to hit and plus 1 damage. Let's see. I think that's about it. I'll get this wrapped up so Russ can get this in the can and out to you guys before Gen Con. Until then, talk to you later. Happy gaming.
This is the Dice Tower Network at Dicetowernetwork.com.
Talked about background already a little bit. We're going to talk more about the teams in a second, but we got to talk about the models. It is a miniatures game, and you got to have good miniatures. How did you guys go about ensuring and making and coming up with your models would look great, be great, have the right materials? What were some of the tough design choices you guys made to get to where you wanted to be?
There weren't necessarily tough design choices.
Or easy.
I was adamant from the beginning how we approached it. So from the very beginning of talking to the concept artists, and I'm lucky enough to have to be friends with some really awesome, professional concept artists. So the idea of writing a detailed brief for them was very natural for all of us. So I was quite clear that I wanted, a mixture of materials, because they're fun to paint, and layers of different types of materials. So layering metal onto leather or fur onto leather or and big open cloth areas. And the idea is these models, I think Games Workshop are amongst the best models in the world because they are so simple to paint if you're not the kind of guy who invests a lot of time in his painting, and yet when you put them in the hands of someone who can paint or has spent a lot of time, on their painting, they can pull off some amazing kind of looking, effects with them. And it's the same mini, and that's the thing that really inspired me when it came to, designing the model range was the models need to look great, they need to be dynamic, they need to look amazing, and yet they need to be easy to paint. So they need to be able to work well with a wash. They need to, pick up like the edge highlighting from just dry brushing them should look as good as when you actually go in and you blend up to your highlights. So it was built in from the very beginning, concept level. layering these things, big open spaces, and then Russ, the sculptor, he and I, he's a competitive painter as well, so we've kind of swapped war stories over the years many times, and we were really working quite closely together about how to make sure that the mini was fun to paint as well as looking cool.
Very cool. Awesome. So I think it came out that way. I mean, I've had a chance to look at them, but I haven't had a chance to really get assemble and paint yet. But I know Craig has. Craig, what did you think of the model quality, how they came together, how they painted?
I've put together and painted all of the Masons and the Morticians, and they are beautiful. I also got a chance. It was very interesting. The sets you guys sent over, which was awesome, and thank you very much for that opportunity. The Masons were all resin and the Morticians were all metal, so I got a chance to use both of the materials as well. And I've got to say, the quality of the sculpts is beautiful.
Oh yeah,
the complexity is not overly complex. It's not like first generation Malifaux plastics or anything like that. So they went together. They painted up really fast and really fun. And I was getting lots of compliments from board gamers and miniatures gamers last night on the way they look. And I mean, they're really nice models. And I won't mention the name of the manufacturer, but tonight, for a different reason, I was putting together different models, and I was just like, oh, I wish I had more Guild Ball models to put together because these are lame. So yeah, I mean, I think yet again, mission accomplished, guys. The models are beautiful.
Well, we are. I mean, we're proud of the model range. We absolutely are. But we also recognise that we've learned an awful lot of lessons, and the stuff that we're understanding now is like the thickness of weapons. Sometimes, the more delicate elements that I want to try and build into the character design actually don't work well when it comes down to using the model. Little bits snap off annoyingly, and so we're looking into thicken those up. So what we are actually doing is learning as we go. So how the joints fit together. So you put together the Masons and a mallet. Actually, I found on computer screen, because we have a fully digital pipeline on computer screen. He looked great and did exactly what I wanted to do. But when I put him together, I found his shoulders just a little bit more awkward than I wanted.
Yes. Yeah, that's the only thing I had to use a little green stuff with.
Right. So now we know that, and I when I'm working with Russ, we recognise that kind of stuff. So we're now looking to explore proper pegging, having like a square peg on the left shoulder and a triangular peg on the right shoulder. So it's really clear and obvious, because we're getting an awful lot of gamers coming from board games to play in a miniatures game.
That's great.
And the other way round as well, which I really like. But board gamers are lucky enough to play. Their weapon of choice generally tends to be preformed models or models that are super simple to click together. And I'm slightly worried that being a hobbyist, for me, pinning a joint is no bother. But for someone who's never pinned a joint, that's actually kind of a big deal. So we're looking to make sure that the next range of models that are coming out for season 2 are going to have learned from all of those lessons, so they should be even better in terms of ease of putting them together and still maintaining that dynamic poses and the art flow that we can build into them.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So you guys nailed that. Awesome. So the other pillar of a miniature war game is
it's catching, right?
It is.
Yeah. It is.
Well, you got a theme. Might as well go for it.
It works.
The other thing you have to have is a good selection or choice of factions, if you will. And I've said on the show before when we reviewed new miniature games that you need at least 4. Anything less than 4 will fail. Well,
and I believe I directly quoted you for that when Rich and I were talking about designing the very first Kickstarter.
Did you? Well, yeah. I'm glad you exceeded the number.
We on the other hand, were kind of scared of it.
And you probably were not happy to exceed that.
It was
number.
terrifying.
No pressure.
Definitely, we went from the Kickstarter. We started with the 4, and we thought, cool, we'll see where we go. Like me and Matt had, let's be honest here, we had no idea. We knew we had a good concept and our idea was kind of strong, and and we felt the world and how we'd present it to people could take off, but we had no idea about the demand and what we were kind of creating. I remember we were doing a live stream via Twitch when we were kind of launching it, so I kind of pressed the green button in the background, and Matt was talking about some design concepts and stuff on the live stream, kind of like
probably dice mechanics and stuff like
probably
that.
dice mechanics again, just going over it. But we pressed the button, and I was just watching, behind the scenes, and it was literally it was about £1,000 per minute that was happening. So I think we were at 10 grand by 10 minutes. And I'm kind of updating Matt as I go. So yeah, Matt, we're 5 minutes in, and we're up to 5 grand, and you could see on Matt's face he was completely shocked on the live stream.
That's awesome.
And he just kind of casually carried on, and then we hit the 10-minute mark, and Matt, we're up to 10 grand. We got we're a third away from our target, and Matt was, I think, what was your comments, Matt? Was it something to do with?
I think someone said, "What are you going to do now?" I said, "I'm going to go and buy a yacht." Which was just like, just off the top of my head, I'm like, that is the thing that I want to do right now. And it was just, I don't even like yachts, but
yeah, the whole thing, it took us by surprise. And the next day we were funded, and we did superbly well. And it was kind of like, I remember we were going to SmogCon. It was kind of the next year after we kind of had the idea. And we were kind of going there just to play some War Machine, have a chat. We organised some space to demo Guild Ball and kind of, say the Kickstarter's out and stuff. But by the time we'd arrived, the thing had funded, and we were arriving there, people like shaking our hands saying, "Well done, guys." And it was a really bizarre experience. But then we were literally locked in a hotel room for most of the first day, literally going, right, we need to work these stretch goals out because, we are vastly quickly getting
them
far
all,
beyond. Right? Yeah, so,
that's awesome.
We had the first team in the bag that we hadn't published, so we put them out, and then it was like, we were nearly hitting them within the day. So it was like, okay, Matt, you need to ring Mark, and you need to ring Doug, and get some concept art done for the other idea we've got.
Create more guilds. That's awesome. And I think it's great it went so well. And I think one of the reasons for trying to, I think that you need multiple teams is that you need, as a first-time player, and you guys know this as miniature gamers yourself, but as you paint those models, you fall in love with them, and you want to see models that attract you and call to you and really inspire you to play the game. And so, a lot of listeners maybe they do know Guild Ball and they just want to hear you guys talk about the origin, but I'm sure a lot of people listening haven't heard of the product. And so I think it's great if we take just 20, 30 seconds a team here, and you just give the elevator pitch of why this team is cool and unique. So let's start off with and if I miss a guild, jump in, because you guys have a lot.
there's 8 of them.
There's more than a few.
We've got them all on the list.
All right, cool. So
Brilliant.
What about the Alchemist? Why are they cool?
So the Alchemists, all about kind of range control. So they control the opponent through conditions, so poison, burning. So they're a real kind of control faction like that. They're also one of the best teams to actually mix up with the Union, the mercenaries, because they have kind of that alchemy feel where you can mix and match people, and they have a very good selection of them. So they kind of they can do a lot of things, and they can be skewed in many ways.
Yeah,
their hidden power is that because they put a load of conditions out, they actually force your opponent to burn a lot of momentum on removing those conditions. So that's kind of their secret sauce.
Very cool, very cool. And Midas steals the people's powers, right? So he's kind of like he's adaptable to the other things. Yeah, that's cool. All right, what about the Butchers Guild?
Well, they're hands down the best team in the entire game.
So Matt was
the fluff does not bear that out.
I know I'm cruel, aren't I?
Fishermen and Butchers are mine and Matt's kind of, they epitomise how we play games. So Matt is very straightforward and dull. No, I'm joking.
I'm an orc and Rich is a skinny elf.
Pretty much, yeah.
That way.
So yeah, the Butchers, they're all about damage, so they generate momentum through hitting things and moving forward and putting, a lot of damage out, a lot of hurt. So that is their goal, basically.
Cool. What about the Engineers Guild?
The Engineers, range plays, and, if you think the fishermen in the world are Barcelona, then the Engineers are kind of Stoke City. They're kind of Route 1 football. They're kind of getting in the early leagues, your amateur.
All of which is lost on our...
the minute I said that, I was like, yeah.
So Route 1 football, if you take Barcelona with their tiki-taka football, they pass the ball a lot, and the short passes, it's highly skillful, and it's considered one of the epitomes of good football. Now take the opposite extreme where you literally get the ball from your goalkeeper or a defender, you lump it forward 75 yards, and your big bruising guy at the front just grabs the ball out of the air, like chests it down, and then just tries to volley the ball in. There's no skill, no talent to it or anything. You're literally just lumping the ball forward. That's kind of, the engineers are great at like long range ball, just getting it forward, and they've got enough kind of big guys to grab the ball and score goals.
Nice.
They hold the ball really well as well, so they're quite good at holding the ball and kind of short kick distances, things like that as well.
Cool. The Fisherman's Guild's neat because I love the art on these guys, and so you hear the name, and you're like, oh, that whatever, but you look at them in the books like, oh my god, I want to play this guy. So what's cool about the Fisherman's Guild?
It's all about kind of maneuverability. So these guys are, they're fantastic at playing football. They don't do much damage, like nearly none. But what they do bring is kind of absolute flexibility and as far as positional play, they are kind of number one for that kind of play style.
Cool. What about the Masons?
Masons, synergy. They kind of work well together. They have a good stat of armor. They kind of can do everything in the game, but they're not the best at any area. But they definitely give you a big toolbox, the Masons, of access of abilities. They're good guys of the world.
Nice.
For now.
And are the Morticians the bad guys in the world or no?
The spooks. They're pretty bad. They are kind of your denial faction, your denial guild style. So they kind of manipulate your opponent. They kind of make them do things. They kind of make it hard for you to damage them and stuff like that. So they kind of be really tricky to deal with and kind of manipulation. So yeah, definite denial team.
The way I describe them to a new player who's thinking about buying into the game is the Morticians play the game at player level. So you're messing with your opponent, not actually anything to do with the models, because they force the activation orders. They completely disrupt your best laid plans. And say for example, you allocate your influence out at the beginning of the turn. You have Shark's gone, you've stuck 6 on Shark because you know that he's going to do something epic, and then the Mortician's player goes, yes, but he's going to activate at the end of the turn, of course, and by that time he will probably be dead. And so you're actually just totally messing with your opponent rather than anything else.
Nice. I like those. That's cool.
That is not how I played them. Maybe why I lost so badly.
What about the Brewers?
The Brewers, your traditional tough faction. So these guys will stay around a long time. They take a lot of punishment. All about pushes. The main guy, one of the big guys in the team, Stave, he's kind of got a lob barrel ability where he can throw a big barrel and push people away in an area. Definitely a fun guild. A lot of people like the Brewers, one of the most popular ones. But yeah, it's all about them pushes and kind of manipulating your opponent through pushing and playing. They kind of direct down the middle, kind of push the opponent out of the way and get the goal through there and hang around a lot of time.
Cool. And last but not least, of course, is the Union, which you mentioned earlier was sort of like the mercenary group. How do they work?
Yeah, so the Union, several of the members play for different guilds. They can be swapped in. Blackheart and Coin are kind of your leads. So Blackheart is the current captain for the Union, and Coin is the mascot. Which is a snake full of gold coins that's been literally filled and tied around the head, which is kind of cool. But they're kind of very individual players. So as a team, they if you bring them and playing them, they individually have fantastic skill sets, but they don't have that synergy that the other teams tend to have between each other. So it's all about the individuals on that one.
Very cool. And there you have it. That's the full lineup. That's a really impressive lineup of teams you got there.
8 teams right out of the gate.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome.
All right, now Craig's got a lot of boring, mundane questions now. So I'm going to
take over. Boring, mundane questions. So that was for people who have never heard of Guild Ball.
Yes.
The next little section is going to be for people who are now super excited about it or already were excited about it. So, gentlemen, prepare yourselves.
Are you still awake over there, hanging in?
We're good.
I think it's morning over there.
It's 6 a.m. at the moment.
Excellent. Great. You're waking up.
Fine.
All right, good.
All right. The biggest question, everybody last night, my group, as soon as they started seeing the models, when I showed them 3 weeks ago, I showed up and I showed them the models. I had just started putting them together. Everybody was really excited. They want to know, when is it going to be available in the United States?
It already is.
All right then.
Yeah. We've got a couple of stores over there already. If you go on our website, guildball.com, you can use the store finder and find them. But one off the top of my head is Armada Games.
Honestly, in Miami,
Florida,
aren't they?
Miami, Florida area, yeah. So that's one of the first American stores that picked it up. We are currently in talks with American distribution, so you're going to see probably a bit more pickup in the US very soon. But yeah, you can also order direct as well through guildball.com.
What about Muse? Muse have picked it up, haven't they?
Muse on Mini about to pick it up. Yeah, literally.
That's what I was gonna. We just had, because we just had one of them guys, John, actually on the show last episode, and he had meant because he's one of the reasons. Cheated Fate's Joe and the Muse on Mini's John are two of the many guys actually that keyed us into your game in the first place. So
the Muse guys they're definitely behind the product, and there's going to be some interesting stuff. I don't know how much I'm going to say yet, but there's going to be a lot
we know what kind of things they do, so that's a cool thing to know.
It's a good thing to know, but yeah, you'll be seeing it in their store very soon. I think their order was put in on Friday,
nice. Cool. So very soon over there.
Very soon.
Okay. Let's see. Do you know if for a lot of the smaller game companies that are over in the UK do cool, the templates, the dice, the tokens, but they never are available in the US? Do you know if those are going to be available outside of the UK, or will they always be direct from you guys?
100%. We've made sure that our token sets can be done at a distribution level. So basically anyone who is getting the product from us will be able to access the tokens, etc.
Awesome. The next big question, are you guys going to be at Gen Con?
Unfortunately, not.
No.
This was a whole issue of the Kickstarter went really well, but we didn't know at retail how well we'd do, because we assumed, a lot of Kickstarter, we've heard in the past that you kind of launch a Kickstarter, we ship the product out, and then you kind of wait like 2 or 3 months to, for people to play the game and get out there. Then people will start buying your game. From what happened with Guild Ball is from day one, people went absolutely ballistic for the game the minute it hit retail. So we shipped the Kickstarter. The next day we were at Salute in the UK, the biggest kind of game show in the UK. And we were the second biggest stand-up out from Forge World there. The queue was massive. We went ballistic.
We thought we were being quite clever, didn't we? We turned up there with what we thought was about 2 or 3 months worth of stock, and we sold out.
We literally sold out.
One of those nice problems to have.
Yeah, pretty much. So, unfortunately, we were kind of right, we need to get into the, Gen Con this year, like not next year like we planned, and unfortunately it was too late. So, next year, 100%, we are pushing to get there.
Do you know if any of your retailers are going to be there with any product?
Potentially.
If we can, yeah.
We've also got quite a few of our gamers actually going there and doing some demo games and stuff like that. So we'll have a presence there, but it won't be an official one, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
And they changed the date as well. Isn't this year slightly earlier than normal?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah, because it overlaps with my daughter's birthday, which
it came 2 days. Yeah, it came 2 days from overlapping with my son's.
Right. Oh, okay. So that was a narrow squeak. I mean, my missus is quite good. She's like, no, you can go. And my daughter's not too fussed. Actually, she did try and chance her arm and come out with me if I was going to Gen Con.
That's the card my daughter played. It worked out.
Bless her. Yeah, but no, it's just a missed opportunity. Everything happened really fast, and it kind of we just couldn't get in the door, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
It is
hard.
We are, however, at Spiel in Germany, in Essen. Okay. So that's our kind of big one later in the year. So it's
and we're going to potentially be making a trip over to the States sometime this year as well to kind of hook up with, maybe try and run a tournament somewhere or try and attend, another event.
Yeah, that's all you can say right now, Matt. I'm keeping him quiet on that one. But yeah, look about November time. There could be some quite big news coming out.
Every time we talk to people, like I do enjoy putting these little panic moments in Rich, where he knows what I'm talking about, and he doesn't quite know how much I'm going to say.
You're going to spill the beans.
It's like, so here's the thing, right? I made up the Alchemist team on the spot
say this one.
During like we did like a panel at SmogCon, and we were talking about a bit like I was like chatting to you about like the Lamplighters earlier. I just kind of went, And you could have the Alchemist Guild, and the Alchemist Guild would be all about throwing these smoke bombs and these acid bombs, and there'd be like firewalls going off, and it'd be awesome, and it'd be about force projection, and everyone's going, oh, when are they coming out? I'm going, they're in the Kickstarter, man, they're going to be there. And Richard's like, what are you doing? I'm going, I'm making stuff up, and it's awesome.
Literally.
Where's my idea book?
Yeah, exactly. Quick, pass me the book before this one goes.
It's been described internally that, you know, Matt definitely, internally we kind of describe it as Matt going away with the magic beans, and he kind of brings lots of these magic beans to me, and then we kind of have to go, right, okay, Matt, you can have this many magic beans, but we'll throw them ones away, you know?
Okay, so I want to keep going. So season 2, you just mentioned season 2. What is season 2? When is it happening? And who is it happening to?
Right. The most important thing about season 2 is it is not being kickstarted. So season 2 is direct to retailers.
Okay. And that goes right to what you said. You have a very strong philosophical view of Kickstarter.
Absolutely. You know, the season 1, you know, Guild Ball was kickstarted, and that's allowed us to essentially support this IP. I mean, you know, we've future-proofed it to the point where it will self-sustain now. So, you know, we will go direct to retailers. And we know we don't discount online. You know, we sell RRP, but we pass the discount to retailers. And it all builds in the philosophy of building the local game stores, building the community, because that is the most important part of growing a game for us.
The second most important thing about season 2 is we're going to release it when it's ready to be released. So not on the clock on it.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got some rough ideas. So we're, you know, looking towards the end of this year, November, December time, ideally. But if we need to push it a little bit, we will do. But you are going to see model releases up until that point. So we are going to start releasing the season 2 models. You can expect to see so I can give you a few details. So there'll be one new guild. The Hunters Guild will be the new guild coming. So that'll be pretty cool. You're going to see a new captain, a new mascot, an additional player, and potentially a veteran of a current model, so a second version of a current model for each team.
A little War Machine style. Nice. A little something for everybody. I like that.
Yeah, so we're going to expand the rosters out, and giving people another captain or a mascot to play is going to really make a big difference. So, and you know, the model releases we staggered, and I think the big thing with the rule book, you know, the actual season 2 rule book, you're not going to see any core rule changes, but what you are going to see is the rule book's going to have kind of the new characters in it. It's going to have the fluff and the extension of the story, but it's also have the campaign system. This is where I throw over to Matt to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, so the campaign system is one of the things that we get asked about an awful lot, and it's one of the things that is quite challenging because, you know, it's very easy for a campaign system to run out of control very early on, and you end up with a clear winner very, very early on. The guy who gets the good rolls on the loot, or the guy who gets the good rolls on the upgrades, and the guy gets smashed up and loses half of his team and has to buy his team back. So what we've tried to do is come up with a way of getting around that and having multiple ways of winning the game. And it goes back to that Civilization RTS kind of feel where martial victory is one way. So in our campaign, winning the actual league is one way of winning. But then there's also like these diplomatic victories. There's these kind of shady deal victories that you can be working towards in the background. So that's probably as much as we should say on that. But it's going to involve lots of plot cards, very narrative driven, very full of flavour, and hopefully an awful lot of fun for people to play with.
Do you have like a model count for this second season?
It's about 30-ish, 35-ish, I think.
I think it's about 35 to 40. I want to say 40. It just goes in my head, but I think it's about 35 to 40, yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I think that's covers season 2. I have one. I was going through your forums and found a question of my own. A lot of people were speculating that some of the players may change guilds between seasons. Might that happen?
Maybe.
Okay.
You know, it's something that me and Matt talked about, that, you know, we have the kind of very cutthroat mentality as far as, you know, the characters go. So, you know, you will see players die. You'll see players maybe change in the allegiance and things like that. And, you know, you'll see maybe some hints of it in season 2. You know, and definitely going to a season 3, you're going to see a lot more of that happening.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. It's one of my favorite things about the War Machine universe is the fact that it evolves. But I love the idea that they change teams because it gives you that sports feeling of like when people go free agent and change teams, and now some players are going to love
and
that.
everybody gets angry.
And some are going to hate him, and it's going to be great. It's going to be. It was my favorite character who's on the Fisherman, but now that he's a freaking butcher, I hate his.
And,
exactly.
I mean, you guys have already killed at least one player that's in the game in the fluff.
Yes.
And I don't want to spoil anything. And do we find out what happens to Ox by any chance, or do we already know? Do we know what happens?
That is the major
season
question. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
That's the one that Matt stops me talking about, so I can't say anything.
So, I mean, one thing that's really important to point out, because I think people have had their fingers burnt a little bit when things like this happen, and Season 1 models will always be legitimate to play. And if a character changes, let's say Boiler, he progresses from apprentice through to journeyman, and he gets a little bit more experience, and he grows in stature within the team. So maybe in Season 2, we have a Season 2 version of Boiler who might have a slightly different set of abilities, maybe a slightly different stat line. So he plays differently. To all intents and purposes, he's a different model, and yet he's a character growth of an existing model. So you could play either version of him in the games that you play. You could never play both versions of him in the game. So this is how we get around being able to kill players off and or promote players or change their allegiances throughout the seasons.
Awesome. Now you had mentioned tournaments. Is there any plan for tournaments or organized play that you guys will be sort of like running?
Massively. So organized play, we've kind of hit the ground running. We've kind of got a partnership with Tiebreak. That's tiebreak.co.uk. Those guys are kind of a fantastic kind of tournament software. And we've been building our stats in from our first couple of organized play tournaments. We did the first one at the Expo, the UK Games Expo. But we are planning to do them throughout kind of not only the UK but into Europe and America. Like we said before, there's plans potentially later in the year to build into that. And I think as well to add into this, we are looking to do our own kind of expo or con towards the end of the year.
Oh wow!
And so essentially running our own every year, and it'll be a celebration of Steamforged games and people that, relating to the company and stuff like that, and doing a kind of like mini convention style event. So organized play is massive on our agenda.
Oh, we should talk. If you guys want to come over, we could definitely,
definitely
make that happen.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Yeah.
One thing that's worth pointing out that I'm surprised Rich didn't say, we've actually got a full tournament pack. So much like Steamroller, we have our own pack. It's called the Mob Football Association Rules, and it basically gives tournament organisers all of the tools that they need to run tournaments, guidelines on how to set them up, guidelines on painting requirements, and I'm very proud of this. Right, it's a core baseline, all fully painted. If you want to play in a tournament, you should be fully painted.
Nice.
It's only 6 models. Come on, we can do that,
true.
right?
It's true. It is only
That's
6
awesome.
models.
But we built it in a modular way, so you can scale the tournament to the number of players that you have turning up and the complexity you want to have. So, and it's basically like a smorgasbord. You kind of go, well, I want one of those and one of those and one of those, and you plug them all together, and that's your format. And then you just publish that to your players. So we're trying to make it as easy as we can for tournament organisers to run the events.
Nice. And how would they get that?
It's on the guildball.com. There's a link if you go to the forums, but there's a link on there, but it will be on the main site within the week, essentially on the front page.
Gotcha. Oh, cool. And so you mentioned clocks. Do you guys use clocks when you're playing with your impromptu tournaments over there?
Yeah, so the first few tournaments we've been building up, I've all been using the chess clock system. We kind of got a unique way of the chess clocks. We felt with the chess clock that our game didn't support the fact that if you hit your chess clock time, you're out. It didn't feel right for us. So again, building the columns in, building the pillars in. We have a second minute clock. So every basically once you hit your death clock, you go on to a minute per activation. So you have a little stopwatch there. You press it for a minute. You get to do your activations for that minute. And the minute's over, you lose a VP basically. So the opponents can start getting VPs. And we actually had the first tournament, the round before the last one. The actual guy who won the tournament actually won on his overtime in the round before, because he was his opponent was on 10 and he was on I think it was 10, and he needed this last takeout. He did it win the overtime, so it ended up like a 12-11 score. But it's really cool. It just adds to that kind of tension and that kind of extra time feeling about the game.
Cool. I'm a little confused as to how that works, but I have utmost faith in you.
It works, and it's actually, play it. It's one of them, because a lot of people, we've had quite a interest, because again, coming back to, people coming to this game, we're not just getting kind of War Machine players, people like that. We're actually getting board gamers, and we're getting Malifaux players, and a whole range that, maybe never seen the chess clock system and how it can potentially work. So I think once you just have a go with it and play it, and you'll see what it brings to the game. Again, it changes the way you play the game and the feel, and definitely adds a different element. So,
and is there anywhere on your website where like the instructions on how to use a death clock and a minute clock and all that stuff would be?
Yeah, so in the actual tournament document,
it's in the tournament. Awesome.
Yeah, it's all in there. It details exactly how to use it and how to set them, etc.
Okay. Now you mentioned very briefly the pundit program. What is that?
Yeah.
So the pundits are the volunteer guys, the guys who throw themselves heart and soul into a game, and they want to help support it and help spread the word. So a bit like a press ganger from War Machine, it's that kind of vibe. So our pundit program is a way of recognizing these people and providing them with all the support and the tools that they need to evangelize the game and get other people aware of the game, and hopefully buy into it and enjoy the game with the rest of us.
And then let's see. Are there any plans for 2-player starter packs? We have one player in particular here who has a dream pack that he would like to see. One of the fancy neoprene mats, dice, 2 starter crews, and the goal tokens and templates. Is there ever...
100%. That's in our pipeline that we want to produce that thing. I don't know when we're going to produce it, because obviously we're just looking at the kind of release schedule and stuff. But we absolutely want to release a kind of box set of Guild Ball for people to pick up.
Cool. Which one of you came up with the idea that you have to have mascots that can play on the field?
That'd be me.
Matt come in the mascot. I'm the only claim to fame I've got. I come up with Salt. That's the one I'm going with.
Is it bad that I'm picking teams to play solely based on their mascot?
No, that's legitimate strategy.
I'm like,
entirely.
I was like,
I'm going to tell you.
I'm picking the one I picked. I picked the Alchemist for the robot. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
and it was that or the little harp seal dude there.
Yeah.
What is he? He's not actually a
fisherman.
It's the Salt. He's a little otter.
Yeah, he's an otter.
He's an otter.
I was going with sea lion, but you know the area.
Yeah.
So I was going to go with that, but we didn't have the fisherman. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll go with the Alchemists are awesome, by the way. I've been starting to look at the models, putting them together. They're fantastic. But yeah, I'm picking it totally based on mascot. So
yeah,
I think that's
fair.
And last night, several of the cinematic moments we had were all mascot related. That damn monkey. I'm telling you.
Marbles and
all he needs is one success to take the ball away. He's like, woo, and grabbing the ball. Meanwhile, I had Dirge was awesome. Dirge is flying around. I got a massive success with Dirge, marked somebody and stole the ball. And everybody was like, seriously, your bird just took the ball? Oh, you just got to picture it. You got to picture it. He's hitting it with his wing.
It's pronounced, my bird just took the ball.
The amount of mortician players
how many games can you say that in?
The bird, and send the other wings is massive.
Right.
The interesting thing with mascots and where the idea came from is, have you been to tvtropes.com?
Yes.
I love that. I lose myself in that website. And, but one of the things has always stuck in my mind, because I wanted the teams to instantly look like a team. There's certain tropes that we understand as human beings that mean it's a team. So you have the captain, you have the anti-captain, you have the big guy, you have the hot guy or girl, and you have the clever gadget guy or girl. And one of the other elements for a team is the kind of the token pet. And when you put them all together and you look at the lineup, they just instinctively look like a team, and so it felt entirely natural for the mascots to also have an important part to play on the field. And I was playing an awful lot of Troll Bloods at the time, and Keggy with Borka, Borka being one of my favourite casters, definitely kind of inspired us as to how the mascots could feel and act on the battlefield.
Awesome. Okay. So, no, I just have a couple quick rules questions for you that I'm just going to zip through because they're going to be boring to people who haven't played yet.
No worries.
But, so these are the things that came up with our games last night. When you have a ranged play, you can play that on yourself, correct? You're included in with, like, if it's play on a friendly player within 4 inches, can you play it on yourself?
You can target yourself as a friendly player.
Okay. And I think we found that somewhere else, but okay. And then the next thing, any play that doesn't say once per turn can be stacked, correct?
It can be used more than once. Yeah.
Okay, so super shot, for instance, can get you plus 3 inches on your.
No, right?
No, really?
Yeah. So you can cast it 3 times, but it only affects the ability affects only once. Yeah.
Oh,
if it's the same name, then you can only have one instance of it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's like an upkeep spell. So that works.
Yeah, that would have changed things a little bit. I still would have lost miserably, but okay. This is a confusing one. All right, so if I'm charging someone, and then Brick, say, who has this ability to automatically charge anybody who ends their advance within 6 inches of him, so he charges me, he attacks before I attack, correct?
Yes.
Yep, because it says immediately attack. If he knocks me down, can I still attack if I'm on the ground? I believe the answer is no.
Correct.
That's
okay.
correct.
And if I use momentum to stand up, I can attack.
Yep.
Yes.
But I don't get my charge bonus.
Correct.
Because I've already been stopped, right? Okay. So
it's a separate attack, basically. So you succeeded.
So,
your charge succeeded because you ended with melee of the model, obviously. But then, you got knocked down. But then you'd have to do additional attacks.
Right.
So actually,
and I lost the 2 influence that I used to charge. Right, that's gone.
Yeah, that's gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is one of the things. We have defender models, but they are all subtly different in terms of the way they play. So Brick is all about this counter charge, and you're
there's
then
nothing
worried
subtle about him.
Not really, no. But Kraken, on the other hand, is quite subtle.
Yes.
How he defends, because he has knockdown on his first column. He also has a 2-inch melee zone, which means he controls an awful lot of the battlefield, and so he can actually harpoon people in, so they get sucked into his melee zone, and they can't leave, because if they try and leave and he gets a parting blow, he just knocks them all down. So his way of defending is very different from the way Brick is.
Right, absolutely. Okay, now scoring a goal, you have to make the shot, which means you're spending 1 influence and 1 momentum to declare that as a shot. Now, does the shot have to hit, or can the shot scatter and still hit? Or it says that if it scatters, you don't score the goal, but I didn't know if that was on a shot or just a regular kick.
Yeah, no, that's right.
That's right.
Okay.
You have to be successful to score a goal.
Yep, gotcha. Okay, cool. Tower's ability to defend the ground, can he pick is a goal a terrain piece?
No, goal is not terrain piece.
I was hoping you would say that. Okay, good. And then finally, I think I know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask it because Shifty asked, and Shifty's a friend. Okay, so this is can a model that starts outside the engagement range of another model charge through that engagement range at a third model without incurring a parting blow?
It can, as long as it doesn't leave the engagement range of the model it charged through.
That's what I thought. But if he charges through it and out again, you're going to get that parting.
You're going to get the parting blow, yeah.
Which makes perfect sense. All right. Well, you successful. Thank you, gentlemen. You both passed my little rules test.
You were the first. You were the first game designers who've ever subjected that test to it. No pressure, but you're going to have.
Yeah.
And people then are going to quote you now. Well, you said back in 2015 on the D6 generation.
No.
I got the Masons one right. The
I think you did.
Headache.
That did great. That was brutal.
No, thank you. That was. Yeah, but like the one thing that everybody was saying when we played last night was it's exactly as you said earlier, that it's a really solid game that's not hard to learn, but so deep once you get into the plays and the influence and the momentum and everything that like there weren't very many rules questions at all, which is pretty amazing considering, you know, we were all playing with our very first games. But I just want to congratulate you guys on this game. It's a phenomenal game. I'm not a giant sports guy, and I loved it. Other than Chaos Ball, which went all in on the Kickstarter, played a couple times, and I enjoyed it, but I haven't played it since. Like, this has really engaged me. Everybody was coming up and they were doing exactly what you said. Like, oh my God, Blood Bowl, but it like this and that. And I was like, it's nothing like Blood Bowl because I don't like Blood Bowl and I love this.
We get that an awful lot, like when we're at shows ago, and you overhear people as they walk by, they go, oh, it's just Blood Bowl. And me and Rich just look at each other and go, they'll be back when they find out. They'll be fine.
It's awesome. It's great.
Only that was time.
Well, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules and trying to fill all these crazy orders, which is the curse of success.
That's right.
To join us here on our little podcast and talk with us here for nearly 2 hours. To take the break out of the middle here and put it all together about your awesome
enjoyed
game.
Myself.
Thank you
that
so much.
That is a lot of Guild Ball right there.
So now if people want to find out more about you guys and Guild Ball and how they could get it or what the status is or the new hotness or anything, what's the place they should go on the internet to find out?
So you've got guildball.com, GUILD, guildball.com. That's the place that has our forum links, everything else from there, has our online store direct. If you're a retailer, like any retailers, and you want, wherever you are, if you contact distribution at steamforged.com, then you can get in touch and we'll give you all the details and the trade terms. If you want to find us on Facebook, it's /Guildball. If you want to find us on Twitter, it's @Guildball. Pretty self-explanatory. And again, all
and
the
if you
links
want accidental season 2 spoilers, then follow me on Twitter because I tend to have an annoying habit of photographing models that I'm painting, and then there's season 2 models in the background. People are going, "Who's that model in the blurry background?
Take that
What is
picture again
that
and
doing?"
change the focus. That'd be great. Awesome.
We do like to put the odd spoilers here and there through various mediums, so definitely follow our personal Twitters as well.
Nice. We'll have to do that then. Well, guys, thanks again so much. I really appreciate taking the time to join us on the show. It's been great.
Anytime. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Great.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
This Did You Ever Notice is brought to you by all of our fine patrons over at Patreon. These are the guys and gals who make it possible for us to do the show. Without them, the show probably wouldn't be going on now, and it would have a lot more ads if it did go on. So in pretty much every way, those fine patrons are the guys and gals who keep the show going and take part in the show and give us ideas for the show. And so a hearty thank you to all of them. And a request, if you've got some free time and, you don't see enough ugly guys in your life, go over to patreon.com, check out the D6 generation, check out Russ and I and the video that we made, Russ and me and the video we made, and see if it makes any sense to you. And if it does, kick in 50 cents, $2 an episode would be awesome. Remember, that gets you all of those lost chapters, which would be phenomenal. And today I would like to thank in particular Levy Mason, Joey, Eric Lagnabach, John Raddick, and Dennis Eddy. Thanks, guys, and thank you all for all of your help. Did you ever notice how hard it can be sometimes to keep something out of your head? I'm going to share with you guys a little project that I've got. Basically, when an idea gets into my head, I eventually have to get it out. And the way that I get it out is most times doing whatever it was. This time around, again, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Frostgrave, although it's pretty much any terrain project when it happens. And you guys have lived through some of my terrain projects, so you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. This is a little more bizarre, however. Frostgrave is a very specific... it's got a very specific aesthetic to it with snow, and I've never done snow satisfactorily. I think I just made up a word, but hey, I got a master's degree. It's probably one of those rights and privileges that states vaguely on my diploma. I've never done snow on a miniature or terrain that I was happy with, so I needed to solve that problem. And it's supposed to be ruins, and my big problem now is it's supposed to be ruins. 1,000-year-old ruins, and most of them apparently are stone. So, most of my Mordheim ideas and the old Mordheim table wouldn't work anyway. But, see, one thing I did, that I talked about last time, for the Mordheim table was taking that old Mayflower model and turning it into a tiny little sailing ship, more of a boat, really, for 28 millimeter. And I thought, that'd be cool again if you like, but instead of cutting it at the water line evenly, I would cut it a little sideways, so so it sort of tilted, so it, it was off true, so it kind of like as the water froze, it lifted it up a little bit. That would be cool. And then I got ideas, like I would do like a little slip, and I'd be able to just plunk it onto the 3x3 table, and it all went nutty in my head, but I didn't have anything to base it on. And to be honest, the last time I did this, I had to rebuild from scratch the entire deck and the entire aft part of the ship. So that took a long time. It took a lot of finesse. I had to carve the plastic hard myself, to make it look like wooden planking. They didn't have that back then. They do have that now. So actually, as I think about it, it would not be as hard as I just thought, but it's too late. So in my quest for snow, I found myself on Rip Model railroading websites, and what they do is they use that Woodland Scenics, comes in a bunch of different types of flocking and things like that, and they do have fine flake snow or small flake snow. I can't remember. And what they say is you mix that with white glue, and then you just glob it all over whatever you want to make it look like snow. And there you go, snow. And I thought, well, that's pretty neat. Although I have to say that from a more basic miniatures wargaming company, I had bought a little tub of snow for like $8 this week. And nobody was mentioning that as like a great opportunity. They were all mentioning this Woodland Scenic stuff or talc, which, would be even cheaper. But so anyway, so I went into the modeling railroad store to get the Woodland Scenic snow. And while I was there, I was like, yeah, they get a lot of models here, and some of them are sailboats. And so I started looking around, and of course, I had my phone out, and what scale is 28 millimeter? And they always say it's like between 55 and 64, 1/50th, or between 1/50th and 1/64th, I think is what they usually say. And you can get, there's a Viking ship out there that's actually, I think, 1/50th scale, which means it would be an exact correct scale for 28 millimeter models. And I thought, maybe a Viking ship. But, the Viking ship was pretty small. It's like a foot. And that was good. I mean, the Mayflower model that I kitted out probably wasn't much more than a foot. And then I came across this Zvezda, it's Russian, Zvezda model. And it was, what is it? The Hansa Cog, which was, I guess, you know what? I'm not even going to pretend to know. It's a medieval ship. It's also called the Thomas, because apparently that was really important in the Middle Ages, the Cog Thomas. And it's 172, which means it's a little small for 28 millimeter. But I figured, you know what? It's probably a big ship in 172, and it'll be a little ship in 28 millimeter. But I saw it. It was like $45. I was like, $45 for a piece of terrain? I don't know. I wasn't thinking. And so I didn't even get the snow, actually. I went out of there. I'm also looking for a bridge. Who does the bridge? I can't remember It looks like Italieri. They were calling it Italeri. I don't know. But they make a pretty cool stone bridge, apparently, because I've got another idea in my head for this table. It's like a 3x3 thing. What am I thinking? Anyway, so and now Gen Con is literally right around the corner. 2 days from now, I'm leaving for Gen Con. I should not be starting a major project. And then my wife and I went out. Usually we don't do shopping together, but we went out shopping together. My son was at a camp that we were doing, and so we had some free time. So we went out shopping. I stopped by the comic store, which is a very typical local gaming store that I used to go to back when I was in high school. And then, of course, we all outgrew it, and we went to all kinds of other cool stores. Most of those are gone now, and this one's still there. And the same people are working there, and they're really nice. And the weird thing is, they used to have this incentive program back before it was even called an incentive program, where for every full $10 you spent, they would just punch your little index card, literally an index card that they kept in this little metal box. And every time you bought something, they're like, "What's your name?" They would flip through it. They would find your little index card, and they would punch it. I went in there like a month ago and I bought something and they were like, "What's your name?" And I was like, "Oh, really?" Oh, I told them my name, and they went on their computer and went, "Oh, you've only got $30 left before you get your next free $10. I was like, not only did they still do it, but they did it from all the way along. So that was cool. But anyway, so that was the comic store in Nashua. If you can find them, it's very hard to find, but they sell bones, almost the entire range of bones. And I need a bunch of bones for, Frostgrave. And then I was like, so I talked to my wife into making a stop there, which is not easy. And then I was like, you know what? The model railroading store is right down the street. Not really. It's close to like 15 minutes down the street. But, so I was like, you know what? You owe me some money. And she was like, "Yeah, the house owes you money." And I was like, "Oh, the house owes me money." So we went and I bought the medieval ship. And I came home. I was like nervous. I was like, what if I open it and it's too small? I opened it. It's the perfect size for a 3x3 table. Plenty wide enough. It would be cramped if you were using like GW miniatures on the GW bases or Privateer Press bases. But if you're using Bones or other more standard role playing, like all the models that Frostgrave is intended for, this ship is going to be fantastic. I got the snow, and then I got it home and I tried the snow, and I showed it on the Twitter feed. It looks like snow. I'm so excited. And I'm super excited now to build this ship and put snow all over. I mean, who knows? We'll be playing Frostgrave in like a month. I don't know. But I'll have all this winter terrain. It'll be cool. And so I went and I did it. And another reason that I did it, actually, just to fill you in, I went to eBay. And usually this is what I'll do. If I find something cool at a store, I'll say, "Hey, what's it look on eBay?" Well, on eBay, this model is costing like $20 or $30 more for the cheapest version of this model on eBay. So that's what kind of decided me that usually, in a store, it's going to cost more. So, so that's that. I'm on the eve of Gen Con, and I've got this giant, enormous project in front of me that I can't get out of my head. But now I've got all the pieces. And when I finish it, you better believe I'll be tweeting it out there. And if you want to see how the Woodland Scenic Snow looks, check out my Twitter feed at D6G Craig. And all you do, it comes $12 for a giant tub of this stuff. That's the other thing that killed me when you're paying like $6 or $8 for a tiny little jar of it. If it's actually wargaming miniature stuff. So, so you just mix it in, and it's hard to mix in because it doesn't want to mix with the glue. So you gotta stir it for a while. You mix it in, and then you just plunk it on there, and it looks just like snow. I cannot tell you. Go check out my Twitter feed right now. You'll look at it. You'll be like, "Oh my God," you'll be stunned. All right. So that is not all I have to say about this, but I'm going to cut myself short because I got to go upstairs now and keep working on this project. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@thed6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
Or Loxam. How do you go? What do you go by?
I don't know really. So Loxam is kind of, a lot of people call me Loxam in the gaming circles. But then
we can do that. It sounds more mysterious.
I like
There's
that.
nothing wrong with Rich either.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, the confusing thing is we've got so Steamforged, very small young company. We've hired a few people now, and annoyingly, we've one guy we've hired is called Rich, and another guy we hired is called Matt. So it's become very confusing in a small company as to who you're talking about.
You guys are a little young to have to worry about body doubles for assassination attempts yet.
Right. I know, but
or at least personality assassination online with the names, maybe.
You can't be too careful, though.
Really
Loxam and the Hart is definitely happening. Loxam and the Hart is becoming a thing, I think. So,
Loxam in the Heart?
Loxam and Hearty.
No, it's
yes,
yeah,
I get it.
That is definitely an English thing where we call each other by surnames more than first names.
And you
had that happens in the States.
That happens a lot over here. I went to military college, and I pretty much was the only guy who everybody knew from by their first name.
Oh right,
so,
okay.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah, it's more of a young guy college fraternity type thing sometimes. Yeah. We do that.
Fair enough. No problem. And then there's a little bit of football if you had a Y on the end of someone's name. So Loxam can occasionally get called Loxy. And I can get called Harty as well.
Okay.